Hey guys, welcome to the 87th live stream. Today's topic is going to be talking about triangulation. As I mentioned earlier on the Discord, I traveled up north to hang out with Debbie, so we're going to do a live show together, maybe answer some questions and talk about a few different things. So hopefully you guys will be able to jump in and hang out. If not, if you're watching this on the replay, that is okay too. So we'll start out with the normal spiel of stuff. So, which disclaimers, I am not a therapist or a lawyer. My opinions are my own and gleaned from my own personal experience. If you have an issue and you need professional help, then seek out a licensed therapist, preferably skilled in trauma therapy, or an attorney. This channel is about divorce recovery, dealing with toxic people, dealing with cluster B personality types, how to empower yourself to take your life back and create a better life for you and your children. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button if this sounds interesting to you, and hit the bell notification, because unfortunately, if you don't hit the bell, YouTube's not going to tell you about the videos. And if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, you can do that over at dadsurvivingdivorce.com, and there's a scroll down a little bit and there's a dialog box to sign up for that. And if you want text notifications, so for the select few people who who've signed up for that or opted into it, you will get text notifications when we go live with the link. And you can do that by texting DSD Live to 33222. So on that, you can see I have Debbie with me here, and we were supposed to go live
Several hours ago.
So
sorry. We really wanted to.
It's been a little bit of a technical exercise to get to this point. So we're finally here. Had to set a bunch of stuff up, move a bunch of things around, find cables that we missed, and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys can hear us and everything is working well and the signal's good and all that kind of good stuff, and we're not too loud. And hopefully we can have a pretty good discussion. It looks like we got 15 people here so far, so that is outstanding. I know Old Shawnee Road was on earlier and said that he's just going to be listening because he's got other stuff going on, so he's doing it with his headphones. And I see that Rebel Law is also online, so thank you guys for showing up today. I know this is completely out of cycle and not the time slot that that we had intended.
Right, exactly.
So anyways, the main thing on that, wanted to take the opportunity with Debbie here to talk about being a target of triangulation, because that is something that happens quite a bit. And I know we talked about this in a previous live show about just the trials and tribulations associated with trying to interact and well, I mean, how the kids basically get turned, or the attention goes away from the ex when the ex ultimately, like me, starts setting up good boundaries and making sure that the other parent isn't able to push the buttons. And as I've often talked about, you would hope that that would stop things, right? That would make things a little bit better. But what happens is they always look for new and unique ways to create problems. And that's typically by focusing on the new relationship and driving wedges there. So on that, Debbie, welcome. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Well, I had a few suggestions come in, and I know that we'll be doing a podcast at a separate time, and we can further talk about it. But some of this overlaps into this triangulation topic.
Oh, great.
So Rebel Law was talking about the drama that, that we deal. Okay, so the way it was worded, I just kind of paraphrased, so I might chop this up wrong. But so dealing with the drama from the ex, and how does it affect the relationship? So it's still talking about the triangulation, right?
Right.
But how does it affect the relationship so that I still feel like I'm important to you? And if I'm saying that in a different way, Rebel Law, please feel free to clarify. That's how I understood the comment.
I think one of the things that was, when I got to the point that I was more I guess, calm about the whole thing with the ex, and the ex wasn't able to push the buttons, and the pivot turned to you. There, one of the problems is I had moved past that, and then you, as being the new target,
Right.
were very angry, and rightfully so. I mean, you know, you were building a relationship with the kids, and then we weren't forcing anything on that, right? I mean, it was just a very slow, methodical process, and then all of a sudden, everything basically changed, and it got really weird, and then some really overt things were happening, which made it even worse. And that, I mean, it made it tough because I didn't want to go there. And then you were right in the middle. I mean, you were basically kind of dealing with it almost like right after someone's discarded and they're dealing with the initial, I mean, all the initial trauma. I mean, it was like going backwards sometime. And I know that had to be tough because you know, you're dealing with a situation where now I'm having to kind of juggle that. And I mean, how do I validate your emotions and not get drugged back down into basically the pit of hell, which was close. I mean,
well, sometimes it feels that way. Completely honest here. Sometimes it just feels like I have to put myself on the back burner in a sense. But I know that sounds bad, but I will do my best to clarify. I know that it's going to take several years for all of these kinks to be ironed out better. It will never be ironed out completely flat. As you know, there's going to be these wrinkles, right?
Right.
But it takes a considerable amount of patience. And I really don't think if I was at a place in my life where I did not have the patience to take a step back and say, you know, what's important here is the children, and they've got a lot that they're going through. And I can't insert myself where I shouldn't, right?
Right.
How to know when to pull back and when to step in it's a dance, right? Mm-hmm. You take a step, you take another step, and sometimes I've taken a step in the wrong direction and go, oh boy, pull back.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there's a relationship here. So you want to nurture that, but you don't
worry about it.
You know, you want to nurture that, but you don't want to do that at the expense of the children that are stuck in the middle.
Right.
And another issue here, so another factor or issue is that, so I want to make sure the children know I do care about them, but I am not trying to take anyone's place. I am not trying to take the limelight off of either of their parents. So I'm telling you, what would you call me? What is my little label here? It's like, you know, being the person on the outside, right? Trying to find my place.
Yeah.
Trying to find, where do I fit?
And I think that's I think a lot of people go through that because you have an idea of the way things are going to go, and then things just turn, you know, just get kind of weird. And guys, we're dealing. I'm trying to set the call-in thing up, so we're actually listening to that, which is a little distracting. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So my notes dropped real quick. So Rebel Wall. Let's see. Let's talk about how do you balance the drama? Oh my goodness. If there was a way to answer that in one sentence, that would be awesome. But it's really more of a process of give and take, of making mistakes and saying to yourself, "Oh, don't do it that way next time." It's really, you're learning as you go, and you take mental notes all the time. And he and I have to, and you have to have good communication. So Dwayne and I have to continue with the good communication here.
Yeah.
You know, when something comes up, we have to nip it in the bud and go, okay, let's talk about this. So I tried to deal with this situation this way. How do you feel about that? Ooh, let's try it differently. Okay, great. Right? We've had to do that.
No, communication is really key. I mean, obviously communication is key on everything, but when you're dealing with this situation, you really have to have good communication, because it's going to be one hell of a roller coaster. Lynn Kent says, we have to find our own strength. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And he also says, this abuse is hell, and once we release, we are in more hell. Yeah, I think if you're saying, you know, I think what you're saying, and Lynn, you'll have to let me know, is that it seems like it doesn't end. and I know for me in the beginning, beginning part of this, every time I felt like I released something or I made some progress, it was like something else changed. It got worse, or the tactics morphed. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I was actually surprised. I mean, in retrospect, I shouldn't have been, but I was actually surprised when you were being targeted on it. I mean, because you were having a really good relationship with all three kids, and things were going well, and you were even doing stuff with them sometimes whenever I wasn't able to do, that first little bit when I had to work and stuff.
Yeah, but did you hear yourself just now? You just
What?
said things were going great, things were going well.
Yeah.
Does anyone else catch that? So you can look at it like, well, yeah, how could anything possibly go wrong? Things are going great. The kids are getting along with you. Oh, boy. As soon as any one of the three go to the other house and say anything kind about either me or the activities we're doing, can you just fathom what happens after that? See, so that's what would happen. It's like, yeah, everything's great. We had a great weekend. We did this, we did that. Whatever it doesn't matter what the activity is. If the kids had a good time and they dared to tell the other parent about what a good time they had, the repercussions on the children.
See,
and then it would come back to us, right? So then they'd come back to the house, and all of a sudden they don't want to talk about, they won't talk. It's really, and the poor kids, they have to navigate this environment of, this is what we're allowed to talk about at Daddy's house. This is what we're allowed to talk about at Mommy's house. If we say anything nice about Debbie, she's going to be upset. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I don't think it's overt.
No,
I
don't think it's
very
overt
subtle.
either. It's very subtle, but it sure is working.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that when things are going great, something happens after they go to the other house, and then they come back. We don't know what exactly happened.
Right.
We know something's happening because the behaviors, you can see from the behaviors and the gestures. And it could be from the tiniest thing. And so I have found that when the children have an incredibly good time with us when we do something, I've noticed that over time, they've realized that they cannot tell their mother that they had a good time. They cannot.
And a good example of that, I don't know if I mentioned this on anything, but Friday was the school. They do this thing called Night at the Museum, and they have and the school is a combined junior senior high. So they have all the students for whatever different parts of their class. They act out these scenes, and so it was a family thing. X was there, actually, oddly enough, ended up hanging out with her just one-on-one, which was bizarre, but whatever. And at one point, when we were talking about some of the art, I asked the ex, I'm like, did you see the video I made? And you guys, I've showed you guys the video of the kids or the girls working on their art. And, they had never showed it to their mom. And that's the thing, right? It gets to the point where it's a vacuum to where it's just easier for them just to pretend like nothing ever, nothing exists at either place, because it just makes it easier. And it's, and I think what happens is and what we experienced early on is whenever we would have those events and they would say something, and then those events would get sabotaged. Either if we were pre-planning it and talking about it, then it would get sabotaged before, and then if not, afterwards, once the kids were able, as soon as the kids went to their moms and came back, then that event wasn't quite as fun. They didn't enjoy it as much. It wasn't as great as it was before. And it makes it really tough because everything you're trying to do is being undermined and sabotaged a lot. I mean, we're dealing with that. You guys are dealing with that. Our kids are dealing with it. And it's really, it's just really a complicated, sad situation.
What's really hard for me, Dwayne, it also is to not take it personally. That is one of the hardest things. I'm going to just admit it. I got a sensitive heart.
Yeah.
And so trying to build a callus around my heart.
It's tough.
When I know that, let's say, one of the three children, let's say we had been getting on really great. Yeah. And then all of a sudden there's this something seems different.
Strange shift.
It is so hard for me to just remind myself, you can't take it personally.
Yep.
I cannot control what's being said to them. Mm-hmm. All I could do is just do the best I can, just as far as gosh, how do I say this? I have to be myself, but I would, I have to continue just being myself and being kind and all those things, but I can't insert myself into it. I can't ask questions like,
oh yeah,
you
no, you have to be really careful.
You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
still have to walk on
On
eggshells,
eggshells, right.
a little bit. And I'm hoping the day will come where I won't have to walk on eggshells, but that could only come with, when they get older and have their own realization,
Right.
where we could really talk it out. And until then, I just need to be very patient.
Yeah.
And just, he talks about taking a step back a lot. Oh, let me tell you, I have to take a step back a lot. And I just have to be very cognizant of what they're going through.
Yeah.
And that this isn't something you just go and fix. You don't just walk in going, okay, if you're the type of person who's a problem solver at heart.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
which I right? It's like, oh, I see a problem. Oh, let me see what I can do what can I do? What can I say? What can I do? This isn't one of those things you come in there and go, oh yeah, no problem. Like, I'll have this fixed. We're just going to have a little talk and everything. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and sometimes those talks makes it worse. It's really you have to be very strategic in how you're dealing with it because it's really tough. And add in, and I think one of the things that's happening now is I'm not entirely sure, but I think that I think the ex is starting to more actively, openly date. And I'm getting weird comments. I mean, like I had a conversation with my my youngest the other day, just asking, well, how would it have been if this wouldn't have happened? And we haven't had that type of conversation in a while. And then what happens on that is then whoever your new, Debbie and I have been together. Have been together for over 4 years. Granted, we waited a little bit for to introduce her to the kids, but that's a pretty long time. And I think that anytime there's another person in there, then if the kids have an illusion of their parents being back together or fixing something, then there's a divide in there already. And I think a covert type person is absolutely going to play, the mind game that, it's just because you're, like in my situation, well, it's just because of your dad. If he wasn't so difficult, then things would have worked out, whatever. Basically, kind of putting in the kids' minds that, well, if it wasn't for your dad, then we could be together. And I know a lot of you guys, I've heard people comment either directly to me through email or even in comments that you're dealing with similar things, that the ex is saying those type of things that, well, if mommy would just, I'm ready, I would be ready to fix it, but your mom just won't do it, or your dad just won't do it. And then it really triangulates the kids more. And then that other person, then the kids don't want that relationship to succeed. They don't want to embrace that new person because they don't really want it to work, because they could potentially have this hope that mommy and daddy are gonna fix things.
I can give some examples, Dwayne, of how I've had to modify my behavior with you because of the concerns of triangulation.
But before we do that, let's just jump in and
we could do that. Let's do some questions, and then. But I took some notes, so we can get
cool.
to it.
So I'm just going to see, because I see a few more people have jumped in. I see Dawn Elizabeth is in. Hey, Dawn, glad you could jump in. Let's see. I think I saw somebody ask, "Who is that?" If you don't know, this would be Debbie.
Oh, yes.
So, and I'm actually drove all the way up to northern California.
Yes, way northern.
In glorious Chico, California, with all the trees. And yesterday was graduation, so we didn't think about that. So there were people everywhere as we tried to traverse the town. So that was fun. Let's see. So Kara Bright says, okay, you guys are talking about, oh, that's right, the new Deadpool movie is out. You guys are talking about movies. That's pretty funny. Let's see, I'm going to scroll down. Lisa. Oh, Lisa. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome. Glad you could jump on. Says, you two are so cute. Aw, thank you. And Lynn says, the reality is once we have been through this abuse, we mess up knowing we give ourselves to another. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about boundaries and stuff too. Let's see. Oh, Sam Aiden, I haven't seen you before, so welcome to the channel. Welcome to the live stream. And if you happen to change your name, then, and you have been here forever, then I apologize on that. It says, hi, everyone. My ex-wife left me and the kids 4 years ago. We have 2 kids, and now she wants the kids back, but I don't want to do that. Any advice? Well, I would say that no, right? If if you've had 4 years where she's left and then see this happen. Okay, let me back up. This happens a lot. There's a lot of people who have, and this exact same scenario. Mom leaves for years and then decides, I want to come back and I want to be in the kids' lives, and tries to force the issue. You need to be incredibly careful that, now hopefully, Sam, you already have a parenting plan and a custody plan. If you don't, be incredibly careful, because there was another individual who I was following on a different, on a singles dad's forum, and he had same situation. Mom came back into town, took the kids for a weekend, never gave them back, filed for divorce, filed for emergency full custody. And since there wasn't anything on paper, the dad who had basically full custody, even though it wasn't on paper for years, was now basically fighting as if everything just started, because legally everything did. So hopefully, Sam, you have a parenting plan and some legal documents in place. If not, you need to be incredibly careful. Personally, I would recommend you file immediately. Now, like I said at the beginning of this, I'm not an attorney, but I've seen this happen to other people. File immediately, file for full custody, and do some things to protect yourself, because the last thing you want to have happen is she takes the kids, she doesn't give them back, then she files, she has possession of your kids, and then she's basically saying you can have temporary visitation, and oh, by the way, I want alimony and child support. So, Sam, if you could say a little more about what your situation is, that would be helpful. Let me scroll down on that. Let's see. Bear says, I didn't know about NARCs until just before I left mine. Thinking back, I can now identify some of the triangulations. Yeah, a lot of times when we look at that, we can see what has happened. And Lynn says, we really start to understand our abuse, whether it's relationship. No, we start to realize we have lived in denial. Yeah, absolutely. And then, oh crud, where'd it go? Lisa has a question. Well, you know what? Since it's a question, I am going to. So you guys, I forgot to mention this. If you guys put question in the thing, I typically will put it in a slide. If I'm missing, because you're watching the live slides, but let me just come over here, and not there, right here. So I'm going to try to grab this and paste this in. And then we'll go to Keynote, if that works. So Lisa says, question, how long should you date someone before introducing them to your kids? My advice on that is 3 to 6 months. I would wait. I mean, and if you can wait longer, wait longer. We waited 3 months. Typically, the honeymoon phase on a relationship is about 3 months.
Or is it 6?
3 to 6 months.
It could be up to 6 months. So, but
I would wait, right? I mean, make sure everything's stable, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to have this reoccurring, situation where you're introducing, new people to your kids all the time. So, wait and wait as long as you can. I mean, I could see if you have full custody and you don't have a lot of time, then that could complicate things. But you definitely want to wait as long as you can, just to kind of keep things as calm as for the kids. Now, in this situation, I mean, we waited, and then we still haven't lived together, right? I mean, even whenever, Debbie lived close, she still had her own place, and there was still some, I don't know what the right word is, it was a slow process, right? So, I mean, it wasn't like we dated, introduced the kids, she moved in the week later and, had a blended family then. I mean, no, we've taken it very methodically and slowly, which I think is, to be honest, I think it's been a good thing.
We did the best we could, but at the time, as anyone who knows his story knows, he didn't know what he was, the way you worded it is, you didn't know what you were dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we had that information, both of us, if we had that information at that time, I truly believe we would have waited longer.
You know what? That's true.
Isn't that true? I really think we would have waited longer. So Dwayne at the time was like, okay, this is going to be okay. This is a normal thing.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's no big deal.
Right.
My ex couldn't possibly. Yeah. So we thought 3 months was long enough at the time, and it's another long story of what happened after. We did bring it up.
That's a really good point. Because I mean, I know I've talked about this before, but I mean, when we started dating, I didn't know about NPD and cluster B and that type of stuff. I thought at that point, things had calmed down, right? I mean, the ex wasn't messing with me. Things with the kids had calmed down. I mean, things were actually going pretty well. And I thought I was dealing with a semi-normal person. And I obviously now know that that's not the case. Although I will clarify that my ex has never been diagnosed with personality disorder. So I am not a clinician, so I can't diagnose her. Looking at the information, there's lots of strong traits, and the skills and techniques that people were sharing and the techniques that I've developed since do appear to work for people who share those strong narcissistic traits. But bottom line is, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think if I would have known what I was dealing with, like, okay, if we started dating now, I would wait. I would absolutely wait.
Right. If we were starting over again, you mean, right?
Yeah.
So also
wait longer. I mean, just to
wait
clarify.
longer. Also, honestly, because Dwayne, you didn't know what was going on, and neither did I with the ex. We also would have possibly even taken a larger step back on our dating, because there were some things that he needed to go through as part of this experience. Right. Learning about it and how it blindsided, like, oh my goodness, that's what was going on for 20 years. Like, yeah, it was a big, difficult thing.
And part of the problem with that is, because that would also, realistically, that would be a red flag, right? I mean, so when we started dating, I don't really think we were initially. I don't think the ex was in the conversation much, but whenever everything switched and it got ugly, that came up in conversation. But so I wasn't saying, oh, she was the greatest person in the world. I was pretty angry, right? And that's a red flag, right? If someone is saying that their ex is a really bad person and they're toxic, that's now that kind of, I'm sure everyone out there, that's your spidey senses start going off, because it's like, well, wait a minute, is it really legit? Is that really true? Whereas, like, if we were to start dating now, it would be a completely different environment. So I still have, I don't know if regrets is the right word, but
we got through it. We
are
a testament to the fact that
perseverance can work.
We are a testament to the fact that you can start dating a little bit earlier than you should and still get through it. But it was a storm. And we had to ride out the storm. Okay. Yeah. He was going to therapy and we were still dating, and I had to take a step back and allow him the time. There were times when I didn't hear from him for a day or two because he needed time to himself.
Right.
Okay. And that was something that I needed to do for him, that he needed that time. So there could have been, if it were someone else who wasn't willing to do that, it could have been someone that said, you know what, Dwayne, there's too many issues. I'm sorry, I can't date you. Yeah, that could have happened. But I chose not to do that. I made that decision that, you know what, I'm going to take a step back and allow him some time. And it was, I didn't know how long it was going to take. Right. I didn't know how long it was going to take. And so we would, but communication.
Yeah, you have to be able to talk and have open communication. Right. And it's tough on that because in the beginning of it, you don't really understand, or at least I didn't understand exactly all the range of emotion. I was dealing with CPTSD issues and just gaslighting and all kinds of issues. So let's see here. We got, looks like we got another question. Let me see if I have it prompted. So Dawn has a question, so let me pop that up. It looks like we have a couple other people online, which I'll mention here in a second. So if this switches. All right, so Dawn says, question to Dwayne and Debbie, what are some other reasons they triangulate and how to handle it? Well, I think the number one reason that they triangulate is to continue to keep the cone of chaos going, and to maintain the narrative that you're the bad person and that you're the problem and they're the target. And by doing that, they can create extra drama and chaos with the kids, right? It's when you're being triangulated through your kids, but you can be triangulated through anybody. It's even worse when it's your kids because they're more susceptible to it. And you really have to be careful because your actions can make it worse. And I can talk about that more in a minute with what was going on Friday. But what do you,
I've got some bullet points, because this goes along. Answering that question would also go along with what Rebel Law was telling me, or talking to me about on the Discord. So some behavior modifications that I made because of the many instances of triangulation include the following. And they're such simple things. Riding in the car with the kids.
Oh God.
When I
Yeah,
ride
I
in the
forgot
car,
about that.
I'm sitting in the front, which means whichever child is accustomed to sitting up with daddy now has to sit in the back. If any of
Right.
that information gets back to the ex, it's, it's so sad that, whatever. There's always some kind of a comment and
Well,
triangulation with riding in the car.
Well, or how about this? How about the triangulation with? I mean, I heard this from the. I mean, this actually came from the kids, and this was like a couple years into it. Is that mommy's waiting to date the right person and won't introduce anybody until they're the right quality of person.
Right. Insinuating something that.
Yeah, insinuating that
Daddy just rushes in.
just ran in and did
Yeah,
whatever. I mean, so there's a lot of little things on that that are
Right.
really subtle, and you can't fight them, right? I mean,
Nope.
it's not like I can turn around and say,
Nope.
"Come on, guys,
There's
really?"
no win. So here's a list of things: riding in the car,
Yep.
sitting next to Dwayne in the movie theater, sitting on the couch with him when it's family movie night,
Yeah.
and talking on the phone, just having normal conversations on the phone. I guess there's a common theme, and that is, I have to watch, like, the time that I'm spending, whether it's on the phone or together.
Yeah.
I have to make sure that his children have a chance to sit next to him. That sometimes I have to sit off to the side and just take a step back and
Well, talking about the
they're-
triangulation thing on the
Yeah.
movie, I mean, there was a situation a while back where I was going to take the kids to see a movie, and I think we had gone to a different movie a few weeks before. I think it was on Father's Day, maybe. I think it was last year. It must have been last year then. And and Debbie actually wasn't even going to go. I mean, it wasn't even an issue, and I had the girls basically say, I can't remember how they said it, but it was really mean and cruel, and it was like, well, I don't want to go if she goes, or is she going? Are we going? Does she have to? It's something really tacky. And I ended up not even taking him to that movie. I mean, I was really, it ruined the whole thing for me. Now, I didn't make an issue of it. I didn't sit there and jab him in the eye or get mad or anything. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's just these constant things, and it's somebody who comes into these relationships, and you, because I know when we started going out and the first time you met the kids, you did not think it was going to be this bad.
Oh no.
And even the initial meetings with guys, whenever the first time the kids met Debbie, it went fine. They were happy. They were good about it, well behaved. I mean, they weren't being, and to be honest, they didn't start pivoting until later,
Well, it was when we had a couple of really good experiences, and I brought that up
yeah,
earlier.
that's true. Yeah.
So the better it gets, if any of that gets back to the other house, then all of a sudden, surprise, surprise, things start kind of going down in other areas. So it really took us a while to really process that and go, wait a minute, what? This is strange, but I can just look on their faces and know that I need to take a step back. So when he and I have time to ourselves, then that's fine. When I go with the family, sometimes I drive separately in my own car purposely so that I don't have to deal with the issue of, so it's so sad that, you have to sit in that uncomfortable seat in the middle because Debbie always has to sit up in front. Oh, it's so sad for you. I mean, even though I'm not there listening to that, I'm trying to put together what are they talking about over there to where it comes back as a negative if I go places with them or something. It's just like, what's the big deal? So yeah, there's a lot of triangulation that way, and I've just kind of taken a back seat in a lot of cases. I just try to be cool.
Well, I mean, and unfortunately, you have to. I mean, and unfortunately, this type of situation is really common. I was talking with a friend of mine who her husband's son was just horrific throughout their marriage, right? I mean, so he's an adult now, and she can have conversations with him. And now it's coming out that mom was saying, "Hey, make your dad's life a living hell," and be mean to his new wife, and she was doing everything just trying to be, kind of like Debbie's trying to be, just, not trying to be mommy. I mean, you're not,
Right.
just
Definitely
trying
not.
to be, a good influence and a participant in the process. I mean, and toxic exes don't care about the impact of what they're doing. And she even said that she had a conversation where she had asked him, well, you care about your dad, why would you make his life a living hell? And they don't, it's like, they get so sucked into it that they don't see it. Hey, I'm looking at I'm trying to, Lynn's saying some stuff, and I'm trying to just figure out what's going on. Okay. So, let's see. So you'd made it, well, that one was hidden.
Okay.
So let me scroll back.
So I'm not used to the multitasking like Dwayne is. So basically while he's talking, I'm trying to get used to just looking at you guys, basically, which means looking at the camera. So forgive me. I'm trying to keep up to, I guess I can take a look to see if we're missing anything.
So Lynn, I'm gonna go back, and I'm just gonna search through what you were saying so I can kind of figure out what the conversation is, because I'm missing part of it. Let's see here. So, okay. So you say at one point, hey, it's all about moving on. It's not about let's get even. Yeah, that's a good point, because whenever you focus on getting even, it creates. It sticks you to that. It looks like we have a caller coming in too, so I'll grab that here in a second. Okay. Lynn says, well, we really need to start to understand abuse, whether it's relation. Okay, I already read that one. Let's see here. Mommy and daddy are not conscious abuse. Mommy and daddy are the biggest abusers. How do I even understand boundaries? When a child is raped by a trusted member of the family at the age of 5. So are you saying your kid, that happened to your child, or are you saying that happened to you? Let's see. Okay, so I see. I'll grab the caller here in a minute. So Lynn, I'm trying to just follow what you're talking about. So, I think I'm missing some of it. I'm not really following.
Missing
it.
part of it.
Yeah.
We also have, which we can get to, purple belt. So how do you suggest dealing with manipulation, triangulation when the 16 and 18-year-old? I feel like I have to warn them.
Okay, on that, you have to be really careful, because as soon as you start warning them and trying to tell them what the reality is, there is a strong possibility that it'll backfire on you, and they'll start to look at you as being the one who's trying to manipulate them against the other parent. So
exactly. So that's why if I tried to step in and say something to the kids, it ends up backfiring. So what I feel is that the only thing I can really do is just be as consistent as I can. Right? Be as consistent as I can in my behavior. If I try not to make mistakes, but if I do, just nip that in the bud. And then whatever I did, just don't do that anymore, whatever that was. So, and that comment is because there's a 6 little words. I made a sarcastic statement that was not supposed to be said out loud. Have you guys ever said something that was going through your mind and you really didn't want your lips to move and it to come out? Yeah, that happened one day, and that really caused problems. And the thing is that I haven't been able to live it down. And so in 4.5 years, I made one little comment because
one minor mistake.
It was a minor mistake. It wasn't even.
But the problem was it was perceived as being derogatory towards their mom.
It was perceived that, yeah. And there was some behaviors that were being told to me about the other parent. It kind of triggered something in me, I guess. It was upsetting me. And I should have just got up and left the room. I could have made an excuse like, you know what? I need to go use the restroom. I'll be back. I should have there's a myriad, anything else would have been better. So, we have those bad moments. And the thing is that because I'm in that difficult situation anyway, where I could, it's easy to
make a mistake.
It is. So that's why I have to, man, I'm telling you, we are all human. I'm telling you,
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean,
the
and it
best
put
advice.
and the thing is I mean, the end goal is to drive. I think is for the ex is to drive a relation to drive a wedge, which either one makes me have to choose between the kids or Debbie, or destroys a relationship, which would I guess that would be part of it too. I mean, that's the thing, right? They're trying to basically plant bombs in your relationship. So hey, let's go to this caller. And then Lynn, I see you answered a couple things, so we'll jump back to you. So it looks like we got maybe John. I know that we have issues. So John, if you're listening and you have your volume up, get ready to turn it down. And I'm going to try to pull you into this call. And so stand by one. Hello, this is Dwayne. Are you out there?
Hey, Dwayne. It's yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Let me make sure that the little,
no
let me make sure that the dots are flying. So, yeah, okay, cool. I just want to make sure that they can hear you, which it looks like they can. So, what can we talk about?
Okay, fantastic. I'm surprised I got in the air so quick. Actually, the last time I had spoken to you was on the I guess the Tuesday's chat
Okay.
about you know. So everything was good. The last time I talked to you, my relationship with my children was showing drastic signs of improvement.
Right.
And it was great. It was on the upswing. We had a great day together. We talked about that and my recovery, that what I had been through since the separation. But the problem is that today I had the children for visitation, and it was like impossible. They got in the car. They wouldn't engage. They both had like zombie-like faces on, like expressionless. And it was my day with them, and they didn't want to do anything. Like I took them up to, I was going to take them up to the beach. They were just adamant that there wasn't going to be any, no activities that they would engage in. They would just sit in the car. So,
right.
you know, I was driving around, and this has happened before. It's like hit or miss. So it was great. I was on the upswing when everything goes smooth. My life is in order, and this time it's just a drop down. It was like 2 hours of driving around. I had them to 8 o'clock, and they wouldn't. And they're basically being abusive and disrespectful towards me. They're just saying we hate you. And then the older 12-year-old is like a parent to the 9-year-old. So you know she's influenced, and it goes from the chain of command from the mom to the 12-year-old to the 9-year-old, and they're just extremely abusive. So I just basically drove them home, and I'm back in like the vacuum. Like, what just happened? I'm driving away. I'm doing everything to be stable and consistent with them.
Right.
And I'm driving away saying, I don't have the answer to this. I mean, who do you turn to? Do you turn to your friend? Everybody has an opinion. Do you turn to your father? Do you turn to a therapist?
No, a therapist. I would encourage you. A therapist is a good route to go. And here's the other thing on this. And it's actually, I mean, we can relate to this.
Oh, wow.
What you're talking about is exactly what I was going through in the beginning. I mean, I have videos where I talk about it as a Groundhog Day, and I know your visitation is less, but there are going to be times when the kids walk in the door, they're going to have a transition period. Maybe they have been primed at the pump from their mom to act like that. More than likely, that probably is what happened. And you have to be really careful, because reacting to it and grilling them on what happened. What I did, and actually worked really well, is I just kind of let them do their thing, and I didn't respond. I didn't take the bait, because it is a triangulation attempt. What's happening is, your kids are basically been primed to push your buttons and try to make you irritated or make the time horrible to perpetuate that illusion that that you are horrible, that they shouldn't be around you, that they don't have a good time with you. And it's tough. I mean, it's one of those things where you just kind of have to just bite your tongue and don't get angry around them. Just try to give them as much attention that you can with them. How much time? Because you only have like, what is it, like, would you say
right.
8 hours?
Like Wednesday, a Wednesday I've been having dinners with them, and my day is now Sunday, where I would basically have till 12 to 8. So let me tell you this, that it's not just a current situation. Within the marriage, I was alienated.
Yeah.
Like I was never real. Anything I wanted to do with the children was always like a uphill battle to get them to take them to, say, an amusement park, or
Yeah.
just to do anything with them. So it's been, I was alienated within the marriage, and now, I mean, it's to the point where my daughter's graduated in 8th grade. They're like, we don't want you even to go. We're going to call security. 9-year-old Shayna has field day at her elementary school, and then she just jumps on the bandwagon. Well, you're not going. We don't want you to go. We don't want you to have anything to do with our lives. I mean, it's just extreme alienation where, I've been trying to call them every day, trying to be there for every Wednesday dinner, to pick them up
Right.
and try to do something on the Saturday. And then it's just, and then I get other opinions where, it's like, don't take the abuse. I'm not angry at them, but I'm letting them know that they're, being disrespectful and abusive towards me. And, I'm just, on my end, I'm doing, and I actually have been in family therapy with them. And the therapist is like, your dad's coming down here. He's going out of his way. He doesn't even have to bring you to family therapy.
Right.
Some fathers just pick up the kids and say, get in the car, and they go. But, like, I have a house that we raise the kids in, and I have that house to myself. And they won't even, like, come here, like, for the day to even, they'll just sit in the car. They'll just boycott, and they'll sit in the driveway. Or they're alienated against their grandparents. My parents have a beautiful beach home. I'll go over there, and they won't even get out of the car to say hello to the grandparents. It's just, I mean, at what point, like, do you say, you throw your hands up in there? What else could I possibly? And this has been going on for, like, it's for like a 2-year period, basically.
Yeah, and that's really tough, because I mean, your heart's being ripped out. I mean, you're actively watching someone destroy your your relationship with your kids and your kids' relationship with their dad. I mean, and it's wrong. It's I mean, in my situation, that was, God, what was it, like a 2-year period? I mean, I remember talking with Debbie about the Groundhog Days. I mean, she wouldn't even come over. I mean, I would talk to her sometimes.
He's just now said hi.
First time I've seen Debbie, I've heard all about her and all the channels that you put out
right.
there. But hi, Debbie.
You'll have to excuse my facial reaction when you were talking about some of the things, because it's like I'm reliving what I saw.
Yeah.
Happen with Dwayne. It was so hard. And you said it's interesting. You said 2 years. 2 years has been going on. And then he just now said the 2 years. You guys both talked about a 2-year period of just horrible Groundhog Day. It was very hard for me to watch this. And as he pointed out, it got to the point where I was like, I can't come over on Wednesday evenings. I cannot set foot in that house on Wednesday, because that was transition day. It was so bad. And over the time, I'm just going to say, I saw Dwayne, how he was just like, you know what? Once he realized what was going on, he started practicing some new skills. You were practicing some skills, and consistency. He broke down the barriers with consistency, no matter what they were telling them at the other house. Because what can you do? You don't know what was being said about you. All you can do is be consistent. Be consistent. Show them you care. Show them that you know what the boundaries are, but give a little.
It's tough. I mean, the hard part for you, John, is
at some point I have to step in and play the parent role, instead of it's like reverse, that the 13-year-old is very mature, and she basically takes on the role of the parent. I mean, not only to Shayna, who's 9 years old, but to me as well. Like, she's basically telling me, and I have to say, hey, listen, I'm the just to set up.
No, and you have to do that. So I mean, don't. Right, and I'm not saying to not do that. There are boundaries. You still have to maintain boundaries. You just have to be really careful that you're not, falling into that trap of getting angry. And it's tough. And I mean, so there were instances where I would say, okay, that needs to stop. Typically, in my situation, what I would do, because I had the kids, is I would let that one day go, and then the next day I would, if I needed to, then I would go talk to them and say, hey, you know, that's really not appropriate. That's not how we're going to act at this place. You know, I mean, you're really hurting my feelings. I mean, there are, you know,
Yeah,
I mean, that type of thing.
I'm like so far beyond that because they're like to the point where when we have kids, you're not even our father. We did the family tree at school. We didn't even put you on the tree. We don't even acknowledge you as a parent. I mean, it's just and it comes like the mom. I never was able. It was always her way, one-way communication,
Right.
and it was never any compromising or understanding. That was basically either put up with that the rest of my life or, you know, get a divorce.
Right.
I mean, there wasn't any middle ground. There was never any, from the inception, there was never any understanding. So,
Right. And oh yeah, go ahead.
I didn't have enough time with them to influence them at all as well. So, and I leave there like in a vacuum again saying, well, who do I turn to to get answers? Like, it's something like that, an unknown question, you know, that can't be resolved. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems like when I saw it's just a topic that was something I'm dealing with at the time that you're having the topic. So
yeah, and I remember having conversations with my therapist at the time, and some because I mean, not as bad as what you're talking about, but I did have those conversations where it's like, well, I want to go with mommy. You don't want to, you know, and you don't like these things. You don't want to do this anyways, you know, and begging me basically to not go. So it wasn't as vicious. It was still hurt. And so what I would say though also is that, you know, like the last week or a couple of weeks ago. So, okay, here's the thing. You said before that you had a really great time. The last time we talked, that you had a really great time with your kids. Now think about this. You had a really great time with your kids. Everything went well, right? Then they went to their moms.
Right.
They probably told mommy about this really great time, and now they hate you and they're being cruel.
Right.
So they were being,
there's financial. Yeah.
What was that?
But that's true. But there's also like, you know, there's no court-directed amount of support that I'm supposed to be giving her right now. Like we went into proceedings, like I told you last time, we went into proceedings, dropped proceedings. Now we went back into and we're waiting. So there's no directives, court-order directives for visitation.
Well, and then that makes sense too, because what they do in that situation is they're trying to convince the kids that they hate you. So then when it comes to court and they're setting custody, that it'll be as little as possible. I mean, unfortunately, John, this is really part of the very typical game that is played that is absolutely evil, that is wrong.
It's just total psychological warfare. It's
absolutely.
Just,
oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's just absolutely brutal. You know.
Yeah.
And you know what? And you know, also you can't prove it. That's what's so. It's not like you have. It's not like you have this evidence of. Okay, there's parental alienation because of this sentence or that sentence. You're not there to hear those sentences, so there isn't anyone. There isn't a psychologist that can pick it apart. How do you? The family therapist is identifying, and she's going to write a letter. There is like numerous text messages that to my text messages. I like respond that I like 5:18:18 picking up the girls at 4:00, and there'll be like 30 messages saying the kids don't love you. They don't want anything to do with you. That you're there's just. Message after message. So there's documentation.
So on that, what John here's the thing. This is the really tough part, right? She's trying to break you because if you can get to the point that you give up, then she wins, right? So you have to just keep pressing on with this and try to be. I mean, like honestly, like as you were telling the story, if that was in my situation and the kids were like, "Well, I'm not getting in the house." Now, in the early part of this, I would have got mad and probably said, get your little behinds out and stuff like that. I think today my approach would be, okay, sit in the car and all right, we'll just sit and talk, right? And I mean, and they're also testing you. One of the things that's rather common on this too is that kids begin to believe or think, they're confused on what's going on. And they're testing, right? They're testing like, okay, is daddy really going to be this way? He doesn't love me anyways. So when I push the buttons, he's going to discard me. So I'm not going to do this or that because it's going to be, it's going to be this other scenario anyways. And that's very typical too. And the problem is they don't understand that they're ripping your heart out. They're trying to deal with their own trauma and drama and it's I'm sorry you're going through this, man.
Well, do I pursue, like, just a couple quick questions? Do I pursue, I'm going to Shayna's field day. Do I contact the principal and say, hey, I really want to see my child participate? Do I go to the graduation and just anonymously sit in the audience and watch
If
my
there's
daughter
nothing,
graduate?
if
I
there is
think
nothing
this is
to, if there's nothing that says you can't do it, then I would show up. And I mean, even if they're to the point where they don't want to see you, I mean, are they being that cruel? Show up, watch a thing, take some pictures, and leave. So that way later, later in life, you'll have an opportunity. If it comes up, you can say, hey, I was there, right? And it's going to suck. I mean, I feel for you, because even going there and having to deal, or being in that environment, and I mean, that's got to be really painful and hurtful. I mean, because it is painful and hurtful.
Well,
but
you've been through it, but the thing is,
yeah,
it's like, it's such a waste of life and time and
yeah,
energy. You're only here on this earth for a short period of time. I'm already, I'm going on 53 years old. I have to deal with
yeah,
this maybe into the next 4 years, and it's just
Right.
such a waste of useful energy, and it's so emotionally draining that it's just, and it's so mind bending as well that you
yeah,
can't pinpoint exactly any answers to what's happening. It's just so
Right. And the
it's
trap
tough.
is being
Really
set.
interesting.
Yeah, trap's being set on you, just like the
yeah,
trap's being set on him. And so the kids are just like you saying, is just trying to navigate. Well, I'm being told this or that, or it's being insinuated this or that. So I wonder if this or that happens, what will be the reaction of my parent? And so for you not to show up will end up biting you, even if they're saying don't show up, don't show up. If you don't show up,
Well,
you
yeah,
realize that's taking the
it's a
bait.
double bind. Yeah,
yeah.
So
I
it's a
would,
double bind. Just like
yeah,
no matter
and
what you do,
yeah,
it's like
right,
a dual-edged sword. Just go back and say, well, you didn't call yesterday. You didn't stop by for visitation this week. And
right.
and
right.
one at least got out of the car. She's like, slam the door and say, we're not having any more Wednesdays or Saturdays. Like she's dictating. I'm like, well, that's
Oh,
not your decision.
John, yeah,
So,
wow, that's
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah,
happened with
wow.
me. In the beginning of mine, I had every other weekend and Tuesday and Thursday dinner visits, and then like a month into it, after she had an attorney, it was I got the call. Well, not the call. I went to pick the kids up, and she basically pulled me outside and said, it's killing the kids to see you. I'm not allowing them. I'm not allowing my children to see you anymore because it's killing them. And I'm like, you don't get to say that. And she did. I mean, they unilaterally made the decision. And see, and that's the thing. She'll play that game and she'll manipulate the kids and she'll do all that crap. Just you're now you're going through the process. You have an evaluator or a therapist who is recognizing this, which means you're more than likely going to get more time. Her ability to control and manipulate is going to go down. It's just what's going to be key is how you interact with your kids to minimize the crap that she's doing. Now, unfortunately, in your situation, she's done a pretty damn good job, your ex, of screwing the situation up. Part of what you were talking about with the parental.
Really, like, in a way, she's brilliant, but she's brilliant in an evil way. So
Right.
it's just
Right.
her
Shrewd, yeah.
manipulation and control mechanisms from day one
Right.
are just beyond understanding, really. So
Yeah.
If she can emotionally deregulate you, she'll take the reins and run with it.
Absolutely.
So be careful.
Well, I didn't give her the opportunity. I basically have not answered her text messages in like weeks, and when she, I mean, she'll send a series of like 30 messages trying to deregulate me, and I won't even respond to them. So I do
Good
it as
for you.
like a count, like a game. Like, okay, she sent me 80 messages. I sent 2 messages to just saying 5:18, 1:08. I'm picking up the kids. So
Right. Yeah. No,
it's
you're doing,
just,
and now you're doing it right on that. Hey, John, you just have to hunker
But
down
also-
on this and just I mean, part of this
and
is
then
they're
I could call
ramping
back
it up.
and we went out to dinner and it was okay. The Wednesday dinners are actually always okay. It's a couple hours. We go out to dinner, we
Right.
sit down, and it's pleasant. But the extended, 12 to 8s are just pretty much hit or miss, and mostly it's a miss. But that sets me off the tone for me having to function going into Monday, my work week, and deal with customers and deal with the real world. It just knocks the balance of
Yeah.
whatever off. But let me
Well,
ask you one thing. There's no amount. There's been no support set. So I don't really know how much I'm supposed to actually
see,
support I'm supposed to provide to my wife right now. It's just
here's the
you
problem
know, I
that's
kind
going
of
to
don't
be
want
with
to make
that.
it.
And I mean, so you're not ordered to pay, so you're not paying, so that's basically fine. But what's going to
I
happen?
am paying, but I just don't have an amount. I don't. There's no
Well, if
written
you're paying,
communication between
okay,
you
if
and
you're
I.
paying, make sure that you're doing it by check and make sure you're writing child support on the check, because what's going to happen is typically, I mean, I could be wrong, but this is my understanding. When you finally, so they, you have a court started, right? You're pending a date that when you finally go in and get your time in front of the judge is going to say, okay, you owe $1,000 a month. And oh, by the way, this goes back to when the court, when the hearing was originally filed 3 or 4 months ago, and owe all those arrears. So you're going to want to be able to demonstrate that you've been paying a certain, paying money that you didn't know what it was, and so you're okay. So you don't get stuck with that you're paying her, and then now you got to pay her. That just is considered a gift, so to speak, and then you have to pay the rest of it.
In that respect, that I wasn't paying her enough that she's going to try to get back pay, but there's been no set amount, and I've been putting in. I mean, I don't want to make it like the situation where it's just so good for her that she, doesn't even.
Right.
There's no impact that I had, basically worked the only provider for the single provider for the entire family for 20 years. I just
Right.
don't want it. I want to have some recourse.
Yeah.
The importance of a father in the family, what I did to support them. It wasn't just. So I don't want to make it easy, but at the same time, I'm doing money transfers basically out of the accounts, and then it's a joint account, so it shows that she's taking the money out and putting it into her
You need to
account.
stop. You need to stop that, in my opinion, unless your attorney says that's okay, and you need to do it with checks, and you need to put it that you need to have some type of evidence that you were using that as child support, because you are at risk if you're just transferring money or giving them cash, or if there's not a direct tie to what it is. That can be problematic. That almost happened to me, and I almost.
It shows the transfer, and then it shows her. I put the money in the bank, and it shows her transferring it into her bank account.
Right, but
basically in her name. So
we don't want it to look like you're just giving gifts, though, because
Right.
they'll say, "Oh, gee, that's nice you gave
Yeah,
gifts, but here's the real amount that you owe."
Right.
Well, wait a minute, I paid this.
And see, and John, that's kind of what happened with me at first. Is when they finally, I mean, I was paying her a lot of money, and when we finally went to court and they said, okay, here's the number, which was actually higher than what I was paying her, but then they turned around and said, okay, well, you owe her 3 months behind. And my attorney at one point said, because I was paying the house payment, he goes, well, the house payment stuff, okay, you'll get credit for that, but all the other money you won't. And I about flipped out. So that's the only reason I'm saying that. I mean, if your attorney says it's,
how were you giving your ex the money for support initially?
I was writing
through
checks.
or was it?
I was doing it through checks, and they still were saying that I wasn't going to get credit for it, and I wasn't too happy about that. It didn't happen. I was able to fight that, but I've known other people who that has happened to them, that they finally go to court and the number's set, and they say, oh, well, here's my records. Then I transfer the money over, and they go, no, that's a gift. You owe her all this back money. So, and I'm not saying that to try to make you irritated, because I know in my situation, whenever people would tell me things like that, it would really make me angry and kind of trigger me, and I'd have some pretty angry responses. So I'm not doing that. I just want you to be aware of the possibility, so you're looking into it so that you don't get blindsided by something. So, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for letting me take over the show. Thanks for covering the issues, and I'm probably going to be a caller on a regular basis, because something happens from day to day that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, not a problem.
Thanks for calling in. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, John. We will. All right. Talk to you later.
Thanks.
Okay. So, and before I just want to say, because during the middle of that, Ellen did a super chat, says, nice to see you. I think she's saying that to you. So thank you, Ellen, for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Every little bit helps, and you've been very supportive of the channel, so it really means a lot. So thank you very much for that. And the thing I want to just finish up on that. You know, guys, when you're in the midst of in the midst of the battle, right? I mean, we're all in the battle, but when you're in the midst of the court battle, the prize is custody, time, and money, right? And as a result of that, unfortunately, an evil person is going to try to use the children to achieve that goal. It is very typical that that's what's going to happen. Now, John last week in the when he called in was talking about a really great experience and time he had with his kids, and that's the key. Is you have to think about when you're looking at all this situation, you have to look, are you having positive interactions with your kids at all, right? And most of us are. And then when you look at those negative interactions, you have to look at it and say, okay, well, is this negative as a result of the positive, which it typically is. I went through the same thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember the first time that the kids came to my house and we had a great amount of time and I was able to take care of them and feed them. And then they went back to their moms and all hell broke loose, right? And then it gets to the point where they don't want to come over. They don't, this isn't their home. This isn't, you name it. And it's just, boop, eye poke after eye poke. And when you're in the midst of this with the court stuff, you have to understand that they're trying to manipulate the kids to pick them. It's like, pick me, because if they pick you or they pick her or pick the other parent, they get more control, they get more money, they get, depending on what the arrangement ultimately turns up to, they could have sole decision-making authority. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to win the game and get as much as they possibly can. Now, in John's situation, where he's talking about how there's already evidence of what she's doing, and to be perfectly honest, guys, most of the times therapists will not get involved and want nothing to do with the court thing because of liability. I've had that problem even with my kids' therapist. Back when things would come up and she would say things to me, I would like, well, will you put that on paper and send it to court? And the answer was no. So, John, you're in a situation where you actually have some good things set up, and you just have to slowly and methodically go through this process, not take that bait that she's trying to provoke you with, and get to the point where you can get to that first freaking hearing and get some real orders in place and see the direction it's going to go, right? And okay, did you want to add anything on that?
Oh, I'm just I just got to say this, that when I hear some of these stories that are so similar in certain areas, I know there's a reaction on my face because I'm like, oh, I remember that. Oh my goodness, I remember these situations. So please forgive me for that. It's just a natural, organic reaction. You can kind of see it. You can see what I might be thinking right there.
Now, the flip side to it is, look at it that I went through the similar type of thing and I've been able to come through it. So, if you can stay on track, you can stay on mission, so to speak, and make sure that you're focused not on what's happening today, not the battle, but the entire war. That's the key. The problem is that as you're going through this, if they can get you to, make decisions in those battles to lose the war, then they've won. So let me look and see what else we have going on, because I know there's a lot of conversations going on. Let me just see what's current or what's live. Cy Scooby's on. Hey, Cy, glad you could jump on. Says, happened to me. The crooked judge is evil court system. Yeah. And it's really tough because if you make any mistake on it, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it's just going to go, it'll go your way. Sometimes it won't go your way. But you have to be really careful on how you present yourself. Because if your actions demonstrate, or not demonstrate, but validate what the other person is saying, you're in a bad situation. Ken Walter's on. Hey, Ken, haven't seen you in a while. So sorry I haven't been here. Oh, sorry I haven't been here for so long. Every once in a while, I try to pretend that my life is okay. That's I hear you on that, Ken. I mean, sometimes things are, they have their ups and downs. Dansky's. Oh, that's to another comment. Cool. Amy Loves History says, hi, friends. Boy, I'm late. Didn't hear my phone. Metal detecting. That sounds cool. Trying to keep myself busy with the kids being at their dad's. That's always tough. Wendy Smith says, is this Your lovely Debbie, Dwayne? Yes, it is. I remember watching your earlier videos, Dwayne, and wondering who can this lovely person be? Well, there she is,
The
guys.
mysterious Debbie. Who
The
is
mysterious
this person
Debbie.
who lurks, and sometimes, sometimes I'm just a fly on the wall, and sometimes I jump in there and say, "Hey, everybody!" But I've been following from the beginning and encouraging him. This has been the most appropriate way for Dwayne to move on past some of the difficulty, because you know how much better you feel when you're able to give someone else a fighting chance after you've been through a lot of really rough stuff, and it's really
true.
making lemonade out of lemons. I'll tell you right now.
Well,
It really is.
yeah, that's a good point.
When I see the comments coming up saying, "Thank goodness, for this support, and that this and that were better, or the custody arrangement was better because I was able to maintain my composure."
Yeah.
Because of some of the advice, you realize like how that just makes everything worth it. All the work that goes into it, and it's all worth it for that. Just So I'm so glad that Dwayne, that you stuck your neck out there. Sorry, stuck your neck out. Tongue twister. I almost said something weird. So
well,
anyway,
and it's good. It's been good to take something and make something positive out of it. So it looks like we got another question. So let me pull this one up. If I hit the right button, keynote. So it's from James. It says, Dwayne, after everything was settled, before you met Debbie, or even early on dating her, did you have days when you were in a funk?
Yes.
Yes. And I mean, to be honest, I mean, there are still days that I still get into a funk, that's part, this stuff isn't easy. I mean, even in my situation where I'm pretty far along and things are stable, there are still things that just kind of, poke me in the eye and just kind of bring me down. It was worse earlier on. We talked about this in the past, but whenever we first started dating and everything was relatively stable and the ex didn't know I was dating, that time was pretty good. I mean, that was a pretty good time and things seemed stable. But as soon as the ex realized that I was moving on and she was completely losing control, the manipulation and triangulation really kicked in. And like Debbie was talking about earlier, I mean, there were times early on where I see Dansky says that's a serious flashback, or serious flask. I thought you said flashback. Yes, it is, and it's full of water with ice. No, my point is that there were times where I would completely just shut down. I would be in such a funk that I could barely leave the house, and we were dating at that point. I mean, so she was, Debbie was dealing with that as well. Now, granted, before I got to that point, I was definitely had bad days. The couple years after the divorce, there were a lot of times where I would just be faking at work to get through work. I'd be faking it when the kids were there. And then when they were gone, I was just a mess, just completely just crashed. So that is normal. And it doesn't last forever, right? But, life is ups and downs. I mean, everything isn't going to be 100% every day, and everything isn't going to be 0 every day. Sometimes it feels that way. You just enjoy the good and persevere through the bad. So at least that's my opinion. All right, let me squeeze back over here, try to get to where'd it go? Trying to find my screens here. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to scroll down. Let's see. Okay. Bear says boop. Every once in a while I try to add that in.
I can't help it. I started laughing when you said boop, because when you have someone with a deep voice that all of a sudden says something in a high voice, I'm sorry, it just makes me laugh.
So Sai had said, Sai Scooby had said, what is the reward without the kids? The reward, okay, so let's say in my opinion, if you're in a situation where the kids have been turned and you've lost your kids, your reward is still getting your life back. Your reward is still having a situation to where you can, and it's hard to say, right? It's where you can move on and start enjoying life. And when everything has been ripped from you and then your kids have been ripped from you as well, I mean, it's like, well, how can you do that? But the thing is that the reward is changing the perspective on your life. Now, what I'll say on that, I'll use my dad as an example of this, because he was pretty angry and bitter for a really long time. And then he finally, later in life, finally let it go and just kind of accepted it and started focusing on having a good life with his wife that he had been married to for, 20 some odd years. I think they're at 30 years now. And trying to just let it go, all the crap that had happened between my mom, or his ex, and the situation with me and my brother. And I think that's really the key, right? I mean, it sucks, but I mean, okay, so for instance, let's say my ex was able to, or is ultimately able to, turn the kids, whatever. Let's say something happens and they decide that I am just horrible. They don't want me around. I'm going to be sad about it. It's going to hurt my feelings. It's probably going to make me angry for a while, but at some point I would have to let it go and start focusing on what can make me happy and enjoy life, because I'm not going to give up life. I am not going to give up on my life. I want to enjoy it. I want to, like right here, I'm looking out the window at beautiful trees, because normally I'm in the desert and it's not so beautiful out the window. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, you have to reevaluate your what's important, and that's guys, that's really the key part on this. Is you change your perspective and you reevaluate where you're going to focus your energies, what's important. And I mean, if everything goes to crap, that's what you have to do, because the alternative is you get stuck in being bitter, angry, hateful, right? I mean, I don't know what you want to add on to that, but I mean, it's just like and then if you do that, they win. If they can break you, take everything from you and make you miserable, they win. I talked previously, early on when I was in that mode and I felt that way, that I was like, you're not going to break me. You are not going to win. I am not going to give up. I am going to frickin' fight, and I don't care what happens, but I'm going to turn around and have a good life. Mm-hmm.
But I do have something to add to that. This is the hard part, though, is that because the topic is triangulation.
Right.
It's one thing to be able to accept that the ex doesn't care about you and discarded you, and it's a whole nother hurtful thing to have the children treat you differently, treat you in a way. You're like, wait a minute, these are people I love above all else.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can't walk away from them, and you also can't talk about the other person, like, they're saying this to you and they're saying that to you, because see, they're being primed and trained to protect that person at all costs. It's like, so it's very, very difficult. You have to still love them and be consistent. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. Like I said, I've made a mistake, but you have a bad day, you pick yourself back up. The only thing is, I wish that there was this magic phrase or magic, word or something to make this go. It's not one of those overnight problems to be solved. No, it's not. It takes time. And so that the children will see, this, what? They will learn by seeing the consistency of your actions. Yep. And over time, and when I say over time, because I see what's going on with Dwayne, a long time. Yeah. Not a month, not 6 months, not a year, not necessarily 2 years. How many years, Dwayne, before the Groundhog Days finally basically subsided? Can you tell me? Was it 3 years? Was it 4 years? No, it was like a year and a half. Before the Groundhog Days got better? Yeah. Okay. With consistent working on things, right? Yeah. Okay. I mean, and I've talked about that where, like now, if the kids are with their mom for an extended period of time, when they come back, it's like they never left. You roll the clock back. If they went to their mom's for the weekend, and when they came back for, the 2-day period with me, because it's 2, 2, and then 5, right. It was a nightmare. I mean, there were times in the beginning stages where I would bite my tongue on that Wednesday, and I would just be like, let me just get to Friday to drop him off at school, because it's a nightmare. And I thought it was never going to end, guys. I thought that it was going to be that way forever. And it's soul crushing. And it's, when you're looking at that and you're looking at like going, oh my God, like what John was saying earlier. I mean, you get to the point where it's like, is it worth it?
I mean, I hate to say this, but there were conversations that Debbie I had a couple times. I mean, there were when the whole thing happened with the retirement fund. I almost broke. I mean, we had that conversation where I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. You know what? She can have I'm done. She can have the kids. I'm not fighting this anymore. I can't deal with this. It's just too much. And it was a combination of that particular moment. Thank God I calmed down.
Yes, that was not a good
moment
for
you
both
were
of
scared
us.
about that because you thought that I wasn't screwing around. I was, I mean, I didn't necessarily call an attorney or send an email to the ex saying I'm done, but I mean, I was emotionally spent and broken. I just couldn't believe because at that time it seemed like every time I turned around, something newly catastrophic happened that I just couldn't even fathom. That wasn't a good time.
So there's been 2 or 3 questions specifically about triangulation. I know we've been trying to go back to that several times, and I have already reiterated it several times. But I think what I've seen that works the best is just his consistency and being careful not to take bait and stuff, and also on my end, how I handle it is taking a step back and allowing Dwayne and the kiddos to have as much time together. Like, I don't insert myself when I shouldn't, to the best of my ability. I have to take a step back and go, if I just take a look at one of his daughter's faces when we're about to sit in the movie theater and go, I'm going to sit over here. Yeah. And I'm going to let her sit there. All I had to do was look in her eyes, and I knew there was going to be trouble if we sat. Yeah. Because she wanted, she needed to sit with her dad.
So even at 17, I'll have my girls like, I want to sit next to you,
Yeah.
And I guys, I get that there's manipulation and stuff going on with that too, right? And it's boundaries and stuff, and you could make an argument to say, that you just say no, that you don't play that game, but part of this, the really sad part when you're dealing with a toxic ex who's perpetuating stuff like this, it's the balance. It's the balance of, how do you setting some boundaries, but not going so far over the top that you drive a complete wedge to the kids. Because that's what the goal is. That's what your ex is trying to do. They're trying to use, everyday situations to let you make mistakes, to build up the animosity with your own kids, to ultimately get them to decide that I don't want to live with daddy. I don't want to live with mommy. I want to live over here, because it's too complicated, and it's a tough situation. It looks like we have another caller on. It looks like James is on. We'll grab that in a second. So James, get ready to be pulled on here in a minute. And what else we got going on? I see Wendy Smith has said, Dwayne and Debbie, I grew up in what you're talking about, and it kills me. Now, Wendy, are you talking about as a child that you were dealing with that, or as an adult? And I do not envy children going through this. I mean, this is horrible. And there's really not a whole hell of a lot you can do, because you can't reason with and have a discussion with the ex and say, come on, we got to stop this, because they don't care. The only way that they would stop is if you agreed to their narrative and everything that they want. And that's not realistic. It's not going to happen. So, all right, I'm going to try to pull James on. So, let's see if I can hit the right button here. James, this is Dwayne. Are you out there?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How's it going with you, James?
Well, kind of as another part of that question, today is just one of those days where it just, I don't know, like I woke up and just in a funk for some reason, and haven't been able to shake it. So that's why I asked, and I was also going to ask you and hi Debbie, nice to finally talk to you. What did you do to kind of get out of it? And Debbie, what did it feel like from your point of view, like seeing that?
Helpless.
I mean, were you like confused?
Yeah.
I was helpless because this wasn't like, let's say if his favorite food was whatever, like when you're in a funk so bad that even your favorite food or your favorite activity isn't enough to uplift you, that's what you call pretty bad.
And I mean, there were times when I was in that funk, I didn't want to see her, right? I mean, she'd you know, I mean, there are times where you're like, well, like you said, well, I'll bring stuff over. And I'm like, no, I just want to.
Yeah. Or we can watch a funny movie. No, I'm not, you know, because
Yeah.
I was thinking, let's have some
You just want
comedy.
to sit in your cave and do nothing.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And I mean, so the thing on that, James, is, I mean, sometimes we're going to go through that. And you know, and sometimes, especially when you're dealing with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, sometimes you don't know what caused it. I mean, there were a lot of times in the beginning of this when I really didn't understand when I was still, well, but before I understood what I was going through, and then even when I was learning about narcissism, there were still times that the weight of the world just crushed me, and I would just recoil, crawl into my cave, and kind of disappear. I mean, and it was not fair to Debbie at all. I mean, I wasn't mean to her. I mean, I didn't say, you know, leave me the hell alone. But I mean, I just would, you know, basically say I don't want to do anything, and, you know, like shut my phone off and listen to crappy music and just basically feel this miserable mode that just it felt like it.
That's not funny, but that's literally exactly what I do.
Yeah, and so I mean, so James, I mean, here, okay, so now, like I said, I still every once in a while go through that, right? So now the difference is I understand it, right? It's like, so when it comes up, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm bummed, and I can look at it and go, okay, so what, you know, all right, what's different? Okay, I haven't been sleeping well. You know, maybe I have some stomach issues sometimes and some other stuff. It's like, okay, so these things are happening. I'm not sleeping well. You know, I just looked at my bank account and I have $10 in it. And I have about another $500 worth of bills, and I don't get paid for 2 weeks. So I'm really stressed on that. And it's like all these external things are building up, you know, normally. Yeah. And normally I would say that when I could take a step back and look at it, I could see things that had happened that were causing a response, right? So now
Right.
I can look at it when I start feeling down. I can
it's
go,
not necessarily just one thing. It's
oh no, normally
a
it's
few
not.
things that just build
Yeah.
up and just explode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's normal. So I mean, I think on it is, you know, what you do is you just kind of, I mean, you don't want to. I mean, you don't necessarily want to completely embrace it, right? You don't want to be like, okay, you know, let's go find, let's see, what's the music that'll make me feel the worst? Let's turn that on. And, you know, what's that one movie that just makes me want to, you know, just crawl into a ball and rock back and forth? You know, I mean, you want to try to make active decisions. I mean, realistically, what I normally do when I get down like that is I sleep. I mean, I will just, you know, I'll put on some meditation music. And now, okay, but let me back up. Back in the past, I wouldn't put on nice, methodical, relaxing meditation music.
I've heard it.
I would put on, I mean, there were times that I would find just the songs that would just, you know, just either anger rock or, you know, just the hate rock or the lovey-dovey, you know, relationship suck stuff, blast it through the entire house, you know, like pick one song that just made me feel like complete. It was
Rage
just so,
Against the Machine.
yeah. And I mean, and I mean, in retrospect, I look at it, I was like, well, that was counterproductive.
It served its purpose, though. He was choosing music that expressed the emotions he was feeling, and what it did is I say the word wrong, exacerbated.
You're not able to express it yourself.
Yeah.
Through music.
So, but now he's trying to counteract it instead of feeding into the emotion. He's trying to counteract it with the meditation music, and then and sleeping has no harm to it. I mean, that is more of your body's rejuvenating, you're recharging your batteries. But I will say that as my role, I felt like was to give him permission to have that shutdown time and not belittle him for it, not to. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to do. I want
to try to do stuff anyway. So.
But here's the thing, and this was, and I know she wasn't expecting this, and I wasn't expecting this either. So I would have those funks like you're talking about, James, right? And a lot of times it had, you know, reminiscing about the ex and just like, how did I get in this situation? And this is what would screw me up. What Debbie just said. She would be like, hey, you know, let's go to a movie. No, I don't want to go to a movie. Okay. All right, no worries. Get some rest. You know, I'm gonna go. If you can make it, great. If not, no big deal. I mean, no ridicule, no nothing, and that would make me feel worse, actually. But I'm so glad you did it.
You freak out because you're like, oh my God, they're actually okay with it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like,
They're
I mean,
not
no,
fighting it tooth and nail, and
right. She's not
it's
ridiculing
like
me and
myself.
saying, really, can't you just get over it? You know, I mean, what, really, you're in this mode again? You know, that type of thing. She never did that. Right. I mean, and the crazy part is at the time, it messed with my head so much because I'm like, wait a minute. You know, at the time, I mean, you know, we were like 6 months, 7 months in, you know, first year dating. And it's like, wait a minute. I mean, this person is treating me like this. And I, you know, the way I always wanted my ex to treat me, the way I always wanted my mom and my dad to treat me and stuff. I'm hitting my mic. But I mean, it actually, honestly, it made it worse. It would drive me into a worse funk with that. And it didn't make sense.
It was hard for me because I didn't understand
Yeah.
what was going on at that time.
Yeah.
I was like, now let me try to get this straight. So I'm giving you all the space that you need. I'm
Right.
being completely supportive, and it's freaking you out. And
Yeah.
so because he didn't completely understand it, even though
I
we both
didn't,
are,
no.
or even though we both have good communication in general, because at that time we were both trying to understand what was going on, we didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle put together
Right.
yet. So at that time, it was confusing for him,
Yeah.
and it was confusing for me.
and it's tough to
yeah.
explain. Or
Oh,
try
it's,
to-
Yeah, how do you
yes.
explain it?
Yes, it is.
I'd explain it. It's like, oh, wait a minute. You don't want me to treat you the other way, do you?
Whoops.
And he's like, oh, no. And I said, okay, so let me try to understand. So I'm being respectful, but that's setting you off.
Right.
So that is something, one of the biggest thing I've learned
Yeah.
is how triggering happens in different
Different
ways.
So so how long have you been in this funk, James? Is it just today? Were you saying it was just
today.
Yeah, I mean, on that, I mean, if
Yeah,
there's
it-
if there's something you could do to kind of break it, that's the other part of it is that, I mean, like sometimes when I felt really crappy, this is bizarre. I forgot about this too, because I haven't done this in a while. If I felt really, really bad in a funk, but I wanted to do something, I mean, I live a couple hours from the Pacific Ocean, I would jump in my car and drive to the ocean. And as soon as I came over the hill, like over in Malibu, I didn't even have to actually go to, I mean, yeah, just to see it. I mean, I would drive all the way over, come down over Malibu, because Malibu's
so
kind of nice.
jealous.
And yeah, but I mean, it would make me, it is, right? And I literally just seeing the ocean and seeing it would start to calm me down. And I would go and sit there for like an hour, and it would it was a disconnect to kind of get me going, and then I could start over again. But I know what you're talking about, man,
It's your
because
happy place, and it grounds you.
yeah,
It does.
and it did. So I mean, if you have
Plus,
whatever
the
that,
beach is awesome. So.
yeah. I mean,
James, you need to give yourself permission to have a funk day.
yeah,
And give yourself a little bit of a timeline,
Yeah.
like, okay, you know what? This is my funk day, and that's okay. And this is what I'm going to do with myself during this day.
yeah,
But maybe you can give yourself a little bit of a time, like you give yourself permission, and because the reason why I say give yourself permission is because I don't want you to look at it like it's a bad thing, because I think it's important to allow yourself to feel. How many
Right.
times have you seen stories about people who hold things in? They don't allow themselves to express it, and then it comes out in a not such a great way if it builds
Actually,
up.
what my ex used to do is hold everything in and just explode. So,
yeah.
Yeah, we don't
No, I
want
know
you to
not
explode.
to-
We
to
like you,
definitely not
James.
do that.
Do not explode.
Yeah, you don't want to explode like those people.
Yeah,
Like
not
these
like those people. So
I mean,
yeah.
it's amazing what the effects that these people have.
Yeah.
on
No.
us
So,
months and years after.
So you know
Yeah.
what? Maybe you
That's
How
a
can
good
long
give
has it been
yourself.
going for you?
What month are we? In
Since,
June,
like,
I think
you and
it'll
the-
be. I think in June it'll be 6 years actually divorced, and so the separation was before that. So it's like, I mean, I'm past. I mean, the whole thing started
That's
a
amazing.
little over.
6 years later, you're still dealing with it.
Yeah,
I was going to
yeah.
say real quick before I forget. Maybe you can think, James, of some funk day activities, even if the activity means sleeping.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission. It's like, you know what, this is a funk day, and these are the things that I do on this day. And think of appropriate things, obviously, and give yourself permission. And I think you'll find yourself. I think it's kind of healing if you
Yeah.
give yourself permission. Because if you fight it, and you
Yeah.
say, I feel bad about myself because I shouldn't feel this way. Oh, no. That's just more negativity.
Right.
No, you know what? I'm going through a rough time.
Right.
And you know what? And that's okay. I'm having a rough day, but that's all right. And this is what I'm going to do to get
No.
through this day.
And what she's saying is really
Well,
important.
and I have them
Okay.
every once in a while,
Yeah.
but it's it's weird, right? So they're not all the same. So some days you're like, okay, I'm in a funk. I need to go get some Taco Bell and some chocolate and just go home and watch a Marvel movie or basketball or whatever.
Right.
And other days it's like, damn it, James, why are you in a funk? You can't let, you can't let her, control your life anymore. But you're very hard on yourself, and that's where it's difficult.
Yeah, and that's what she's saying. That's
beating yourself up.
And that's the key, right? What you just said right there, because I know I felt in that. I mean, it's easy when you get into that to start beating yourself up because you shouldn't feel this way. Why are you doing this? There's no, you should be grateful for whatever.
Why the hell do I still feel like this?
Yeah, and just, I mean, it's going to happen every once in a while. And realistically, I mean, okay, here's the other flip side to this, just with the wonderful way the mind works. And there are still times which completely blow my mind. It was like a couple of weeks ago, I had this thing where I'm like, man, why does it have to be so, if this just wouldn't have been turned out this way. And then it's like, I mean, in an instant, I'm like, what the hell am I even, what? It's complete illusion. I mean, so you're still going to have that, especially whenever you're still dealing with issues with your kids and stuff like that, that are just, whatever situation that reminds it can cause that to happen.
That's what you call black hole thinking, right?
Yeah. You just try.
This would have never happened.
Well, no, that
much better. And
yeah, well, the black hole thing is not. Yeah, as the black hole thinking is not thinking about them, and is not like wondering what they're doing, and are having those conversations. As well, why is she happy with this other person, or why can she do this without, I wanted her to do this or dress this way or act this way, and she won't do it for me, but she'll do it for them. That type of thing. I mean, you got to detoxify yourself from them. And it's not easy. It is not an overnight process. It's not something that you realize one of these magic techniques and fix it. It takes time to work on it. Like I was saying earlier, the difference with me now is if I have one of those silly thoughts, it's like my internal programming clicks in and it's like, no, that's like, okay, for instance, I had to spend, an hour and a half with my ex on Friday. There was even a period of time where all the kids dispersed is what I'm looking for. One kid was doing their play. The other one was setting up, and my oldest wanted to go see his friend. So literally it was my ex and I standing around, and she's like, oh, well, I mentioned something about the artwork, and she's like, oh, I can show you the artwork. And I literally was walking around the school with my ex. It wasn't, what the difference is now, here's the key. And you're right, because there was a period of time where even just being in her presence was just sickening. Yep. The difference now is when I'm around,
you just feel sick to your stomach.
But now when I see her, it's like I have that, I look at her and I'm like, wow, this person, I don't have that same visceral feeling. I was able to, it's like I was able to deal with her as an uncomfortable person that you deal with at work, right? I mean, I'm sure everyone has employees, bosses, whatever. And you just have to basically kind of like just grin and bear it. And that's kind of the way I deal with her. And to be honest now, when I'm in her space and I get to see her interact and I get to see her watch, now instead of having that angry response, I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky I'm not with that person anymore.
But Dwayne, you have more confidence now. Dwayne has more confidence. He's more firm in his foundation, if that makes any sense to you. But so he can stand there with her now, and the things that used to bother him a lot, it's a lot of it is diminished now. He's secure in himself, and he knows that she can't control his emotions the way she used to. Mm-hmm. And so before, when there'd be an event of any kind, he would just be like, oh, Deb, he would be sick to himself. He's like, I don't want to go. Oh, I wish I didn't have to go. Oh, my God. And I'd be, Dwayne, are you going to be okay?
Technically, I did say that on this one. I did not want to.
Well, I realized that he didn't really want to go, but you know what, though?
Debbie,
he got through it.
No, I can't say that on YouTube.
Nah, well, the difference is
that
that
man up, Debbie.
Oh no, I don't.
messing with you.
I don't. Yeah, I know. No, I don't even need to
Just
do that
joking.
because like he's getting.
Well, because
Like-
I knew I had to go. I mean, I
Yeah,
couldn't turn
he's
around.
doing well
To
with
be
it.
honest,
Yeah.
actually, the scary part is we were planning this trip, and I forgot about the school function, and I almost, thank God I didn't. I almost mentioned to my son, hey, you know, can you have your mom pick you up on Wednesday, or not Wednesday, you know, go to your mom's on Thursday, so that way I could drop the girls off at school on Friday and then just hit the road. And before I had that conversation, thank God, I was like, oh crap, it's that night at the museum thing. And, you know, because can you imagine the triangulation that would have happened if I would have put it out there and then that story, you know, would have resonated or went out between my kids and the ex that I was going to miss this event. And it was the first time my youngest daughter. My youngest daughter has been looking forward to doing Night at the Museum for like the entire time. Yeah,
right.
6-7 years.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was been that started. So it'd be like 5 to 6 years, right? Because when my other kids were doing it. And so she's been looking forward to it. I mean, I would have been absolutely flambéed on that if I would have said, hey, and imagine this. Imagine if I said, hey guys, I'm going to go visit Debbie. So bye, I'm not going to come see your thing.
Yeah, that
right?
wouldn't have gone over.
That would have
well.
been, would have been,
It's not like the kids would have been like, "Oh, Daddy, we want you to have a good time," and
Yeah.
I think that's great. Oh,
No.
of course not. But look, and also on my end,
I kind of digressed on that. Sorry about that.
also on my end, you notice I'm not saying, "Oh, you don't need to go to that little event." Nah. I would not say that. I would not do that.
No.
It's not. First of all, it's not putting the children first.
Right.
Okay, so he did what was right, and just go ahead and because he can come up and see me. You know, many. There's different weekends he can come up.
Right.
He needed to be there. He was there, and I'm really glad he was. And it went well. That nothing out of the ordinary happened
Right.
with his ex, and I'm really glad. And I could not have been able to say that a couple of years ago.
No, I mean, I was thinking
This would not have
yeah.
been the
Well, it's
same.
Yeah.
What's funny is if she were on the other foot and it were your ex saying that she didn't want to go, then that's perfectly okay.
Of course it is. If
can't-
she
Yeah.
decides not to go, then the
You can't control
kiddos
her or tell her
are
what
fine.
to do, right?
Well, the
always
kids
thought
give
that
her a
was weird.
pass.
No, and the other flip side to it is like if the ex did that, whatever excuse would be okay.
Right. Any excuse
Yeah.
she had.
Oh
would
well,
be
she was
fine.
sick. Oh, she had this
perfectly fine.
appointment. Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough, right? So
What
it's
kind
like
of monster are you not letting me make an excuse? How
right.
dare you?
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
I hear you, James, on that.
So definitely. And I'm just going to say this on the air real quick. We have Amy Loves History talking about, I said my name because she said my name on there, the triangulation, and wanted to know more about what that was. So when I'm just throwing it out there,
okay.
James. Sorry
So-
about that, James. I just wanted to throw that out there that when we get
Okay.
a
Oh,
chance
that's okay.
to talk more about that, we'll...
So what's your
That makes
okay? So James, to wrap this up, so what's your plan today to deal with your funk? Are you?
Yeah, we wanna know-
what's your active steps that you're planning on doing for the rest of the day, or do you have
Mm-hmm.
any?
Yeah, we're curious now. What are you gonna do?
Like I had mentioned, what's weird is just if I'm guessing, like what caused it was so I have like my best friend. He and his wife are married and they have 2 children. They have a kid that was in the NICU for like a month and a half.
Yeah, that's tough.
So she's like a miracle baby. And I go over there and they're, they have little lover squirrels and stuff like that, but they're pretty happy. That, and I saw my sister yesterday who lives away, and they just had a child and they're married. So for whatever weird reason, seeing that, like, it kind of, you're like, well, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I not?
Yeah.
Which is very dangerous.
No, James,
Like,
but what
why
you
do
just
I
said,
not have what they have?
and what. I honestly, man. Okay, so that's a absolute. I mean, so you identified the trigger on this, and I mean, I remember what you just said. I remember I had 2 friends of mine in the midst of my divorce that their relationships almost blew apart, and they worked it out. And kind of what you're talking about, I remember feeling that same way. It's like, what the. you know, I mean, why were they able to fix it? You know, I didn't do anything. I mean, I didn't do physical violence. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I work my butt off. I have a good career. I have been, we're stable, and you won't fight for our marriage, but I'm watching everybody else, and, you know, they really want to fight, you know. I mean, one of my buddies, you know, who it really looked like he was going to get a divorce, didn't. They've had more kids. I mean, they've been married. I mean, so they're still married 6 years later, and now they're happy. And there was a period of time where that hurt like hell, and it would absolutely put me in a funk. So that, I mean, that's understandable.
Starts making you think, like,
right now, I was able to escape out of it and have an opportunity to fix the relationship with my kids, to get in an environment that really liked, to meet Debbie, right? I mean, we wouldn't have met if I was still married, you know? I mean, so it's just, yeah, I mean, you found it, right? I mean, what you just talked about, that absolutely makes sense, that would set you in a funk, and it makes sense, you know, and it's tough. And I went through,
well,
I had that.
Though, is he had been married. My buddy had been married before to a girl that it was just not a good relationship. But so he moved on from that, and now he's happy. And it's not that I love seeing other people happy and seeing him like so happy. It's just,
right.
It really makes you think, like, well, like you said, what the heck is wrong with me? Am I like, you know, what's the analogy I was going to use? Like a big can that nobody wants at the grocery store kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or,
yeah, I hear you on
am I
that
like
one.
defective, or I don't know.
And you're not. You're
to
just.
answer your question.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but it's weird, right? Like 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, you don't feel like that. But in those moments and days, you definitely feel like, well, you know, it must be me.
Yeah, and to add on to that, it feels like you're going to feel that way forever, for whatever wonderful reason.
Right.
You know, when we're happy, we don't feel like, man, I'm going to be happy forever. But whenever you feel like crap, for whatever reason, you feel like, I'm going to feel like crap forever. This is my new life. I'm going to be miserable forever. I'm a piece of garbage. No one is ever going to want me, right? I mean, dude, I've had that same voice in my head. It
depends.
Yeah.
Like, I guess now, once you get used to it, which is terrible that you get used to it,
yeah,
you kind of realize that, okay, well, it's just a passing funk day.
Yep.
Or whatever. And what I usually do is, like I mentioned, I'll go buy some chocolate, go get some Taco Bell, don't judge me, or I'll go get some ice cream.
Yeah.
And just watch, like, a sappy notebook-type movie or something like that, and cry it out, or whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
To where I'm like, all right, I'm okay now. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I hear you.
Or I go to Target and, you know, observe.
Just be around people, you mean, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I hear you. So it sounds like
life is not that bad, but some days it is.
But I think whenever you realize that it's an up and down thing, that it makes it with those bad ones not as bad.
Yeah.
So,
right.
And the crazy part is I can remember a time in the past where I didn't have that realization, or I didn't have that clarity. And when I would have those bad days, they would snowball, right? And it would just get worse and worse and worse. And I'd feel, you know, I mean, and that's the scary part, right? Those are the dark days of this. So at least you're past that, because you're able to understand that this isn't your new normal. Yeah, when I felt that it was my new normal, that was devastating. So
that's crazy to hear that you still go through it every once in a while.
Yeah.
I think it's normal, though. I think that everyone's going to go through it.
But
right?
his funk, his periods of funk are shortened. The duration is shortened. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have those days, but it used to be sometimes multiple days, right? Multiple days. But now it's like there's a shorter amount of time. So journaling is great if you're
You
able
have
to
your
do
day,
it.
you deal with it.
If
and then
if
the
you're
next
able to
day
do
it's
it, because if you
Yeah.
were to say, I've been in a funk for this is how many days, and then notice over time that the amount of time you're jotting it down or giving yourself, I don't know, maybe you can do it audio, because some people don't like to write. Like sometimes I get
Oh yeah.
behind
that's a
on
good
my
point.
writing, but
Yeah.
there's other ways that you can journal without physically writing out
Yeah.
sentences or something, right? You can take an account of how over time it's like, wow, I used to be
Yeah.
down and out for a week, and now I have like a bad day, and then the next day
Yeah.
you feel better. But
Well, I wish I had done
yeah.
this more. One of my friends suggested like a video journal, like on
Yeah.
my way
Yeah.
home from work.
You know,
Exactly.
it's funny you
That's-
say
I
that.
didn't do it at the start, so now it would be kind of
No, start
No,
it.
you
Do
don't
it.
have to-
to
you
look
don't have
back
to.
other than
No,
my own
well,
memories.
You know
That's
what?
okay,
I would
though.
still, you know what? Start it. It's funny you say that, because I was just talking to Debbie about that the other day, and I was saying, there's certain things that happen that we want to capture, or that we should, like the other day, the thing I mentioned on the Discord
You
about
want to remember this.
yeah, and even the bad days.
Yeah.
I mean, use your phone. I mean, store it someplace private. I mean, if you need to, you could even, you can private videos on YouTube so that they're out there, but you can't, no one can see them. But I think you know what? Even though you haven't, and I get what you're saying, because a lot of times there are times where it's like, well, I haven't done it, so there's no reason to do it. No, do it, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be a good thing, even if you don't ever watch the damn thing. But what I will say is, if you can have that, like what Debbie was talking about earlier,
As far as watching it over again.
well, but here's the thing, right? If you can have a list of it, and you don't just do it whenever you're having a crappy day, or even if you do, you can look at it and say, okay, well, I mean, I made a crappy video 3 weeks ago, and I haven't made another one because I haven't felt like crap. Then you can kind of have that data point to show that the difference, right? I mean, I used to do that with journaling. I mean, I don't know if you
Right.
saw my old video where I had like hundreds and hundreds of pages. And to be honest, in those journals, I don't remember what I called that video. Every one of those pages was saying the exact same thing every day, day in and day out, for about a year and a half. And I felt during that
So
period of
becomes
time,
your life. And your
I
memories of it.
I felt that I was never going to get out of it. Now, the funny part is as things have gotten better and I've gotten busier, I don't journal. I don't journal the good stuff. That's why we were literally just talking about this, I think, on the drive when I was driving up. And I don't know if you brought the idea up or whatever, just saying, I should just do a video journal of it.
But you are, because Dwayne, what you're doing with your life now is video journaling, right? Doing this channel. I mean, he's documenting all the things, right? So guess what?
different
You're
method
already
of-
video journaling.
I didn't think. I was thinking more private stuff that I don't want to share with these people.
But these people. But he is.
people.
But he is
Exactly.
journaling because when
That's
something
funny.
rough happens, it's like, oh my goodness, I can share this.
Yeah.
this
No,
is
that's true.
and
That's
this
true.
is how I got through it, and
Right.
this is how other people did.
But-
So, but thanks again, James. And I
Well,
really
used to,
I hope
like,
that
write
talking
journal.
helped
Yeah.
about it. The writing journal. It's good.
It just kind of gets life gets busy, so you kind of you lose it. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe
That's
I'll
true.
try video journaling and writing journaling again. Just
No, I
to,
think yeah,
good days
definitely,
and bad days.
absolutely. Yeah, and if you can do both, then I think it's even
Good idea.
better. So,
All right. Thanks.
all right, James.
Thanks.
Well,
Right.
we will talk to you later. All right. Thanks for
All
calling.
right, thank y'all.
Thanks.
Let me hit the button, see if it works. And all right, there we go.
Everything good. Have you? So Amy Loves History really wanted to know more about how do you describe triangulation? And she brought that
Okay,
up
so
earlier.
triangulation is, well, I mean, it's kind of the way it sounds, right? You have, I mean, like, so in this situation, you have the both of us, and then you add the third person, which is, like my kids. And I mean, technically there's more than 3 people, but what's happening is that, well, let me back up, because that's actually a little more complicated what I was saying. You have your target. So in my situation, I'd be the target. You have your abuse, your toxic abusive person, which would be the X. And then you have the person that's being triangulated against. Let me get over here so I can count my numbers. But so in that situation, it would be, and that could be even a work situation. I mean, so that's the scenario. And then what's happening is the toxic person is interacting with that secondary triangulation person to use them almost as a surrogate to create problems. And what they're trying to do is drive a wedge the toxic person is trying to drive a wedge to to their target using these other people as resources to do it. So, in that situation, like I was saying, like in my kids, I was trying, they try to triangulate with that. They're trying to derail that relationship and convince that other person that either to push your buttons or to create drama, right? A little bit like gaslighting and a little bit like flying monkeys. But it's whenever there's another targeted person in the process. Did that make sense, Amy? Did I answer that? Anything you want to add on that, Debbie?
Well, we give examples every so often of times that happened. So we'll have an experience with the kiddos, and then they'll tell their mother something, and their mother will tell them something like, and put little ideas, like little ideas are being planted in their heads so that when they come back to dad's house, okay, so there's a negative result. So, so there's specific examples, but from Amy, I'd like to know, Amy, if you're on still there. So, did some of the examples we gave, did they kind of help you with explaining triangulation? I really don't want the show to end with you not feeling comfortable with that term as far as like, what does it mean? Because that is the topic title. So that would be kind of we'd have to do a part 2. You know what I mean? If we finished and there were those out there who needed more clarification. So Amy, if you're out there, what do you think? What do you think about, do you feel like you have a better handle on it? And if not...
Well, she said yes at one point, but I don't know what question. Okay, so Amy says, sorry, having streaming problems. You explained it very well. Okay, cool. Okay. Awesome. And it looks like there's a caller. I'm not sure if this is somebody calling back, so hold on. Excuse me. All right, let me hit. Hello, this is Dwayne. Are you there?
Yeah, Dwayne, this is Lyle.
Hey, how's it going? How are you doing? I know that's a loaded question, Lyle.
Oh boy, that laughter! I don't know.
I was listening. I jumped in late, so I missed the triangulation definition.
Okay.
But I sort of really wanted to jump on the back of what that last guy was talking about and how he was feeling, and about journaling your emotions. And even before the stuff hit the wall, for all my adult life, I've kept a diary, and I've made it into really an autobiography for no other reason is that I want my daughter, when she grows up, to know what my life was like, because she's not going to get that from anybody else.
Right. Yeah.
But it can be good to do that, to get it out of your system, because I don't know what stage different people are in, but there's going to come a point where none of your friends are going to want to hear this story anymore.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's kind of why I still go to a therapist, because I just want to pay the guy to listen to me for, talk about this stuff that I just don't want to burden my friendships with. But I also did, storage on YouTube of videos that I want my daughter to see. I don't know if a lot of people know my story, but my ex-wife took me to court and basically, got an order of protection against me. And even though it's expired, she still keeps my daughter away from me,
Yeah.
And it's very hard to reach, without breaking the law or
right.
But by doing that, I felt that it dredged up all of the pain that I felt going through at the time. So, once you get through it, you get through it. I think it's good to have it written down and documented, So
right.
If somebody wants to see what you've been through, there's no way that you could sit down and tell them, like I say, it's a loaded question. You better be ready to sit down for 5 hours to be talking to you, because this is a long story.
Right.
And the confusion of not knowing that my wife was a covert narcissist, and all the symptoms were there. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
You know, and you go back and you see the sequence of events in your life, how you were interpreting them.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a good thing to do, you know. And if you have children, they're not going to know the first part of your life, you know, and,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. And I think it's a good thing to do, to just keep your mind occupied. And it sort of gets it out of your system, you know. You know, it's crazy, Dwayne. One of the strangest feelings I get is that I don't like the fact that I have somebody down the road that hates my guts.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, but I just hate the fact I have this, like, I'm a hated person.
Right.
You know? And I really should just be fine with not wanting to deal with that person anymore. Then you go to bed at night and they pop up in your dreams. So
Yeah.
they keep coming back. You know, they keep coming, you know.
Yeah.
It's all part of your life, you know. And you can't really, you know, put it in the closet and shut the door.
No, unfortunately you can't.
You know, it changes you I mean, look how it's changed you forever doing this show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big statement about how that changed your life. We all can see it and listen to it every week, you know?
Yeah, and
that, you know,
it took a long time for me to get to this point, because I mean, there was a lot of pain. And I mean, Lyle, just listening to some of your story, there are a lot of parallels. I mean, I know my situation, I get to see my kids, right? That's a huge difference, but some of the things you're talking about, and just that same thought of like, why does this person hate me? And why did, you know, I mean, I went through that exact same thing, and it's torture. It's not a good experience. And most people don't understand it. When you try to explain it to someone, they don't, unless they've lived it, they don't get it.
No.
Mm-hmm. And even if they get it, like you had a good point about people listening to you. Even if they sort of get what you're saying, it would take somebody with a lot of patience to just be a good listener and just listen and listen and listen. And you know, and so luckily for me and, well, myself and Dwayne, we're able to listen to each other through those really hard days, whether one of us is having a bad day or the other one. But it's especially difficult when you're enduring something that the people around you either don't understand, or, you know, they don't believe that, you know, it sounds outlandish, right, to some other people who just don't get it. And it's a loneliness there. There's a loneliness with that, and that you're able to speak to a therapist. And let me tell you, I'm it's fortunate that you are able to speak to a therapist. Not everyone has access to one.
That's true too.
Not everyone has access.
So have you, hey, Lyle, I mean, has your daughter reached out to you yet at all now that she's turned 18, or is she still avoiding you?
Well, it's hard to say what she's thinking, because all I've ever gotten for the last 2 years is messages from my ex saying, your daughter says you're trying to reach her, or your daughter, it's like I've never face-to-face or I've never had any evidence that of what my daughter's thinking, or what she thinks of the whole, or what my ex has told me.
It's all filtered. You know? It's all filtered through your ex.
Yeah, and you know, I would like to have one face-to-face meeting where I could talk to her alone. And if she tells me that because there was nothing leading up to this. This sort of taking me to court happened like overnight. I was picking them up from the airport. 4 weeks later, I'm in court. It's crazy.
Wow.
You know, you know, it's not like you had this long list of complaints leading into this. You know,
right?
And I didn't know anybody it happens to you with narcissists. It feels like you got hit in the back of the head. You didn't know it was coming.
Blindsided, yeah, absolutely.
Not see it coming because you're incapable of thinking how they think.
Well, yeah, because you think that they think like a normal person, and a normal person wouldn't do. You know, yeah, and trying to explain it is, and they don't get it. And then some of them are even thinking, okay, well, that just doesn't happen. There has to be a reason. So, you know, I had, you know, and I've had similar things where people are just like, okay, I don't want to hear it anymore. And that's I'm sure you've probably been through that, and that's tough when people are like, just kind of, you know, do that.
You,
So
you could tell when I have.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I have one or two, like two people that have ridden this marathon with me and will still listen to me. You know.
That's
It is
awesome.
a marathon. It is a marathon.
The other thing I'd like to mention is that if this is my only problem, then I'm in pretty good shape. But when you start getting other bad things in your life starting to happen, it can really, everything else seems to be much worse.
Right.
Because you've already got this monkey on your back.
Right.
You know, of something that can cause you to burst out crying for no reason at any time. And then, like, you get physically sick.
Right.
Or, you have to worry about money or some big money, like these things have happened to me lately. And it just makes them all the more unbearable, you know? Because no matter how good a day you're having, how bad a day you're having, you carry that pain on you, inside you. And I think it's great what you do, Dwayne, because I think that this needs a support group. You need people to have that happen to, because unless you experience it, you don't really know.
No. Yeah, and
well, thank you. I missed the triangulation thing. I know what triangulation is basically.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that to anybody out there who thinks about. Definitely write it down. Write it down and tell the story.
Yeah,
And
excellent
let your
advice.
Story be told. Because even if it's just for your kids,
Hey, Lyle, can I mention, because I think you mentioned it, but just to kind of reiterate, one of the things that Lyle's done is he's taking that story when he was talking about going through that, he's actually put it out there so to make it available for his daughter to see at some point, which that takes a lot of courage to do that too. And so we're able to come up with something active to try to make a change and get it out there. So I hope you don't mind me mentioning. I think you mentioned that when you called. So
yeah, I've got about 150 YouTubes of letters that I've written to my daughter that my ex said she won't read.
Right.
My ex throwing the letters away.
Yeah.
So I put them all on YouTube. So there's no escaping it. If people are curious. One thing that you said about your ex is that she doesn't really not aware of the channel that you're doing, the show you're doing, whatever. I have found with my ex that she is so compulsive about. She'll call up friends of mine from 10 years ago and have them call me just to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
She's,
oh my goodness.
Incredibly, starving to know what I'm thinking. And if you put these things up on YouTube, they're going to watch them,
Yeah.
And her relatives, her family's going to watch them, And as I said I leave on there. If anybody, or anybody that's some ex's family, whatever, here it is. Make up your own mind, But this is what happened, I just want to tell my side of it.
Yeah. No, good advice.
I'm not on there, just to bash her. I'm not, I'm trying to make that clear when I make the posts,
Right.
This is not just, I'm not trying to just throw my ex under the bus on YouTube.
Right.
No, I'm just saying this is what happened, and here are the emails, here's all the evidence, and make up your own mind, because that's all anybody can ever do,
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
People that are on her side are going to stick with her. And anyway, that's a tough battle to try to convince anybody. Anybody on her side that she's got this problem.
It's a losing battle, because if you try to do that, and I'm sure you've gone through that, if you do it, they just hunker around and don't believe you, and then in their mind, that's you being abusive. You demonstrating that you're the problem. That's why I say fighting those false allegations with people who are under the narcissist spell. It's a losing battle. It's going to drive you crazy, because as you're trying to explain and try to logically walk somebody through it, and they're not willing to even see it, it's an exercise in frustration.
Yeah. Exactly. I just wanted to say, can I say really quick? I just want to say I thank you so much for sharing about how you're documenting this, because I would like other people to be inspired by that,
Yeah.
because I think that there's that possibility that that will be read someday and it will be understood someday, and you don't know when the timeline is. You don't
Yeah.
know when it is. So what you're doing is so wonderful, and that it's good for you and for your soul, quite frankly. It's good for yourself. And even though it's not you said it's not being read right now, but you're documenting it now, and you never know how it could positively impact later. So thank you for that really great idea.
Yeah,
I think that's really
Yeah,
good.
it was a good idea.
Thanks for listening. You know, I think it's good because
Was, and I was like, if there was ever a way that I could help provide a lifeline for somebody going through it, to say, okay, I can relate to that story and I can see the other side. That's the goal. That's what that's the driving force behind this entire crazy project. And before you go, I also want to say, because you've actually helped me on some of my technical issues, so thank you very much. If you guys don't know, Lyle's actually an audio engineer type from with a lot of experience, and he's shared a lot of that with me, and I really do appreciate that.
That's awesome.
oh, no problem. I'm retired, so anytime it comes to, I can offer advice. I love it now. But
Yeah.
one other thing, I'll let you go. Say, I think it's good that you are so far along, so that when you watch your video clips, so 10 minutes, 15 minutes, for whoever's going through this, find where you are in this
Yeah.
recovery. And I have not, what do you call it, gray rocked, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I've not responded emails since December of last year.
Right.
And I thought it was great advice, because, why get into an argument with a crazy person?
Yeah, because all it's going to do is drive you crazy yourself.
It's just going to drive you crazy. So,
Yeah.
just and who knows? I don't, but I think, I wish there were more support groups. I wish there were more local places.
Yeah. I think that's going to be the
Around
next
the
key,
way.
is trying to do that.
Yeah.
And I think more people are understanding this, where they are starting to pop up. I mean, it'd be nice if there was more an organized process to like a format that was followed. But I think because you said the closest one to you is like, what, an hour or so away? I mean, there's nothing local, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it's crazy, I mean, there are fathers' rights groups, there's a couple different ones, but still, it's not exactly
The same.
And it's still not exactly close either. It's still a good ride,
Yeah.
Sometimes, you don't know where they're going to meet, but you'd think there'd be more, this be New York.
Lyle, I think the problem is, and I mean, I think this is even in like with what I'm doing, is most of the time when people get to the other side of this, they're done and they don't want to talk about it anymore. I mean, so I think that's part of the problem is there's not as many people who are like, okay, I made it through it. How do I help the next guy? As opposed to, okay, I made it through it. I never want to think about this again. I mean, I think that's I'm hoping that's starting to shift. I mean, I really do, because it's needed. This vacuum of information and resources, or not having resources, is not good. So I wonder if I lost. It looks like people are saying the signal's gone. So
Oh, sorry. I don't know if.
I have that effect.
Oh no.
No, you don't, Lyle. Oh God.
Some people might have to refresh. I'm sorry. It's like,
Hold on, I'm just going to say something
I
in
had
the
to
thing.
do that too. But I thought the show was over, and I had to refresh it a couple times.
No, it looks like we have a preview here, and it look. Oh no, that's not the preview. That's the camera, which I got to be careful I don't refocus it.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, no, people are saying we are live.
But
so.
Wendy says I see you, but
So.
but can you hear us?
Oh, okay,
I mean,
Amy Loves History says I see. I went back to my phone stream so much better, at least for
Oh.
me. So I guess we're having buffering problems. So I hope everyone heard you, Lyle. I mean, you had a lot of great information on that. So I hope this call didn't get messed up. And I really appreciate you calling in. I know you've been having a tough time, so thanks for calling in and sharing that.
Right, absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah, I just, it's very hard to remember. Oh, the show is today. It's not yesterday. I thought
Yeah.
it was yesterday. So,
Well, if you can sign up for the SMS text, because then I'll at least it'll if you text DSD live to 33222, then whenever I do it, it'll come up on your phone. I mean, you could try that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but and then today was out of cycle, right? I normally don't do Sundays. It's just I drove up north and wanted to make us do a special little one with Debbie. So that was why we're doing that
great to
today.
see Debbie, and,
Thanks so much.
It's encouraging for those, that, those that are afraid to jump back in the pool, because there's sharks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely hear you on that.
Well, I mean,
But,
I hope that it helps, Lyle. I mean, I and also I can bear witness to some things, and sometimes my perspective is a little different, being on the outside looking in, and I'm hoping that sharing that helps others as well, right? Because Dwayne does a great job of explaining, but I think it's nice to have that second layer of, second pair of eyes that are like, this is how I saw it, or if it was directed towards me, wow, this is what I experienced, and like you said, jumping back in the pool, they won't be as surprised when they see some of the same behaviors occur.
Yeah. But everyone, yeah.
I'm sorry, but I think of all the years that have gone by where nobody had any idea about covert narcissism or what was happening.
I know.
I mean, how confused, lonely they must have been. At least to have support. With the technology we have today, at least we have this ability for people to reach out and just share their experiences. I think that is more helpful than anything.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you.
They get it. They get it. Here's another person that gets it. I'm not crazy. I'm not losing my mind.
Right. Exactly.
So
that validation.
No, you're fine. You're doing great.
Well, it was great talking to you, Lyle. And
okay.
Thanks again.
And, keep up the good work, and I'll try and see if I can stay tuned to when you're on. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
If not, I'll just get up at 2 a.m. and watch the videos. Thanks a lot, Dwayne.
All right. Okay.
And Debbie.
Yep. No, you got it, Debbie. All right. Now that was thanks, Lyle, for calling in. That was great. And guys, that did dovetail really well with the last caller and his experience with documenting it and just getting it, using that as a resource to get it out. And a lot of people did say, Amy Loves History says, you were great, Lyle. Wendy Smith says, shout out to Lyle. You were great. So people did hear you. Luckily we didn't lose that whole thing. And I think we're actually rolling up into after 2 hours. So
is it?
I think we're going to have to shut down because we've been on the phone over 2 hours. So,
okay. Guys, real quick, if there were any questions that you wanted to ask, but didn't get a chance, the good news is if you put it in the comments or put it in there, we could, I could do, what I could do is I could take note of that and write them down and save them for when we could, put them out on either a podcast.
Well, and we're actually, the intent is we're going to record a podcast after this. So that could, so we could actually use those on that. So if you want to do that, add that in to the comments or send me an email, Dwayne@dadsurvivingdivorce.com. And I'm going to double check where we're at with some comments. I went ahead and shut the phone line down so we can start wrapping this up. Let's see. JS says, Dwayne, can you please remind us again that this pain will end and we will heal? Today is a tough day and Lyle's story is so sad. Maybe we should consider talking to or interviewing people who have. Yeah, actually, I've wanted to do that. That's a good idea. And I'm actually working on interview series that are coming up to cover that. But yeah, it does get better. I mean, it feels like it won't. it takes a really long time. I mean, part of the problem is like we're talking about my story, is you're talking about years, and you have to have that nugget of truth, because if you don't, and you see other people who have healed from normal relationships, it doesn't take this long. So when you're dealing with this type of issue, which has the trauma bonding and all the other little nuances and issues associated with it, it really increases the time that it takes to heal. And you need to know that, because if you don't, you're going to feel like something's wrong with you, that you're broken, and that you're never going to heal. And that's exactly the way I used to feel in the beginning stages of this. So anything you want to say before I start go through the show wrap up?
I think you need to go through your wrap up.
All right. So what I'm going to do over here, we didn't really go to much or to whatever, but if you, I didn't talk about the Discord, but if you go over to the main channel, the Dad's Thriving Divorce channel on YouTube, right here in the little box in the banner, the far right one is the invite to the Discord. If you click that, it will send you an invite link, or it'll open up an invite link so you can actually jump into the Discord server. You don't have to use that, or don't use that to get into it. After the fact, you just want to go to Discord app or run the app, and it will drop in, and you can open it through the web. And when you do that, if it loads, let me close this out. This is my little test user. You'll get dropped into the server, into the rules tab, and you only have access to the general tab. So if you get into that, send me a note and let me know that you're on in that general conversation so that I can add you in. And then you'll be able to see all the other channels. And this is an excellent, with what we were talking about, with what Lyle was talking about too, finding people to talk to. This is an excellent resource, because this is persistent and there for you guys, and you can actually interact in near real time, kind of like it is with the chat on the live show, to talk with people. So that's really, I've been really happy with that. If you go to the main Dad's Thriving Divorce website page, which is dadsthrivingdivorce.com, you can send me an email right here by clicking this link. You can also do it here by clicking on the contact page. If you scroll down, you'll see the link for the newsletter. Oh, look, the recording thing changed. That's interesting. And you can sign up for the newsletter, so put your name on that list. If you want to send me a voicemail, you can do that here, and it'll just let you record an audio file and send it to me. If you do put your name down, it makes it a little easier for me to try to get back with you. And I won't go through the resources time this thing. So I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. I know it was kind of out of cycle. I know we were late trying to get on, dealing with some of the technical stuff, but really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. It was great being able to do another show with Debbie. I hope you guys enjoy these little different things in different locations. And I will be back on Tuesday at my normal time at 6 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday, and doing my normal show back at the house. So that'll be normal. I do have some more interviews that are actually in work. I think there's another one scheduled for Monday when I get back. I'm driving back from here on Monday. And on that, yeah, we'll just keep pressing on. And you guys just give yourself, I guess, permission, like Debbie was talking early, to have your bad days, and, go easy on yourself. These situations are incredibly complex and difficult. I would highly encourage you to find, if you can find a really good therapist, try it, right? I mean, because to have somebody who, one, understands professionally understands this is great. Plus you have somebody, like Lyle was saying, you're paying to talk to you. I mean, that's a good resource to have. And, seek out the help and support that you need. So on that, thanks again for hanging out with us on this Sunday. Thanks, Debbie, for letting me drag all my stuff up here.
It was really great being out here. I know it was like a kind of middle of the day kind of thing. And so I'm hoping people who are watching this on the replay, I hope this was helpful and inspirational, even though people were talking about difficult moments, but they were also talking about what they do to kind of get through it. And the triangulation, we're trying to cover that. And you know what? That topic will come up again. Believe me.
Oh, so yeah, absolutely.
We touched on it, but of course, it'll come up again, because that's one of the things that we have to face over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. All right, guys. All right. Well, have an outstanding rest of your Sunday, and I will chat with you guys in the next video. Take care.